Out of the gates and ready to go. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow underway on this Tuesday edition. Glad you're with us across the OutKick network as we welcome you in on the YouTube channel, streaming live there. You just search out OutKick. Hope you'll subscribe while you're there. Catch all the great shows. And this great radio partner, if you're listening around the office today, around your drive, whatever it might be, we say thank you. Big show today. They're always big. Kurt Schilling joins us in 20 minutes, the very latest from his perspective on the Ohtani trade deadline across Major League Baseball and more. John McLean will be with us in hour number 2. A lot of things happening across the NFL, including Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, and more. We'll get to that. Senator Tommy Tuberville returns to the show. And it's a big day on Capitol Hill for college athletics, name, image, likeness. Senator Tuberville is co-authoring. They've now got this ready for today. They've drafted new NIL legislation that he and Senator Joe Manchin will, in a bipartisan effort, try to find some guidelines for what has been a wide open system since 2021. He'll join us at the very top of hour number 3, so in 2 hours from right now. Plus, Clay Travis joins us in studio later. Yeah, they're always big, but today's massive, right?
You know, it's one of those days, Hutton. Every day I show up and I say, today might be the best show we've ever done. Might be.
Okay.
Every day is filled with possibility. You know I tell you this all the time. I tell everyone that. I see people in the street and I say, I want everyone to know that every day is filled with imminent possibility. But I look at today's rundown and I think, this could be the greatest show in Hot Mic history. And I don't say that. That's not an empty threat or an empty thought. These are not empty calories on this show. You're going to get full. You're going to get completely filled with information, with entertainment on this show, especially today's show with this guest list. I am pumped up.
Kurt Schilling joins us in 20 minutes. First, those scorched earth headlines, the top headlines we'll be discussing throughout today. And the stunning, I mean, you do a double take on headlines like this. Bronny James, of course, the son of LeBron, who is a freshman at USC, was hospitalized after a heart attack, cardiac arrest, during a USC workout yesterday. The James family confirmed this through a statement where he was rushed to the hospital. He was unconscious at the time. Those are really the details that we know, other than he is no longer in ICU, which is great news. And this is at USC, Chad, this is now the second player in the last 13 months that has had a heart issue. But first and foremost, you do a double take and you think, man, what just happened? Given the fact that he's done all of the high school accolades and has posted so many different things, and then to have this happen in one of the first workouts, and they're working out early than maybe your favorite basketball team, because they're going to Greece and Croatia for some college hoops tour. So that's why they were on the floor early.
This seems to be happening way too much. And maybe it's because the coverage of it is more and more now. But I remember when Hank Gathers at Loyola Marymount was a huge deal when that happened, with someone collapsing on a court. And I feel like we've seen these types of stories more and more lately. I'm no doctor. I'm no scientist. I do hope that in the interest of good science, that we are researching every possible reason for young people collapsing at this rate. And I'm not here to pronounce the answer to it. I don't know. What I don't want, though, are preconceived notions about anything vaccination related, anything else, to play into a scientific experiment to see what is going on. I want to make sure that we're looking at any and all possibilities for why things like this continue to happen. It's tragic news. I mean, I as a parent, I think about LeBron and his wife when I see this story, and how terrifying that must be to have a child that age go through cardiac arrest. So my prayers are with Bronny James and the entire James family, and I do hope that we are doing everything possible to research all of these things scientifically, so we can start to understand a little bit more about why we're seeing more and more seemingly young, healthy athletes that are collapsing at this rate.
And this is
another one of those sad stories.
And we mentioned the freshman center from last year that collapsed and had a similar cardiac issue at USC. He played in 14 games last season after having this happen 13 months ago. That's crazy. DeMar Hamlin also comes to mind. Sharif O'Neal, son of Shaq, he had a heart issue in 2018, and Bronny and Sharif hang out. Like they're friends. I think they were recently on TMZ for something else a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, I'm with you, Chad. It's just scary. You know, you think about it and the age and what causes it and where it happens. I always think like DeMar Hamlin, where it happened, he was at the perfect place. If you're going, unfortunately, to have that happen to you, you have the best medical care around in an NFL stadium any game day. Same goes for what has happened at USC, not once but twice now in just over a year.
And I think that those medical professionals, the ones we're talking about, you know, first responders, people there on site, people that work on ambulances, ERs, all that thing, I think these are people that are completely above board, that are truly doing their best to save lives and to help people. And I am so thankful that people want to have those jobs and do them and that they're out there saving lives every day. But Connie in our YouTube chat says, what I'm asking for won't happen because the answer is already known. My mom worked for a hospital for the bulk of her career and retired at 68 years old from working at that hospital. And she is one that will always say, doctors don't play this game. You know, doctors, they don't get into that. They don't have bias coming in. They are scientists. They want to help people. They want to make sure they're okay. All I'm saying is I hope that is the case because a lot of things have happened in the last 3 years that have caused me to doubt some of that. And it makes me think that pharmaceutical companies, some doctors, some scientists, where I'd always put that field over here to be outside of the BS and to put faith in that and to put trust in that in all things, I've removed some of that faith and trust over the last 3 years. I just hope and pray that we're getting to the bottom of whatever's going on. I'm not here to say one way or the other. I don't know. I just hope that whatever's happening is on the up and up and that we've got good people that are researching it that won't hesitate to tell everyone exactly what it is. Not the fake headlines you're talking about on the local news where it's like, hey, this thing will kill you. We'll tell you what it is coming up next. I'm talking about real studied data that goes into this that will be reported fairly to everyone because as a parent of a young athlete or anyone that's active, I want to know these things, badly want to know these things. And I just hope that we haven't been shrouded with some layer of whatever preconceived bias is out there or whatever money is involved from big pharmaceutical companies that we're not being drugged through the mud.
And then the companies that forced employees to do whatever, right?
Companies that enforced employees to do it, trying to avoid liability for doing such. That
requirements.
That machine and the amount of money that can be paid to silence things is scary to me. And what I want is just for the future for all of us to know. That should be the most important thing right now. But unfortunately, the most important thing for these companies is to save as much money as possible and not be sued.
Chad, the NCAA afraid of being sued in name, image, likeness. But when it comes to recruiting violations, they try to drop the hammer in some cases, and in other cases, they, negotiate. Reports are that the NCAA and the infractions committee negotiating a suspension with Michigan coach Jim Harbaugh, a negotiated resolution that would have him sit out the first 4 games of this upcoming season. That would serve as a penalty. I'm putting that in my own quotes, air quotes here, penalties for lying and making false statements during an investigation for recruiting violations. Now, Mike McDonald, the former defensive coordinator at Michigan, now in Baltimore.
Not Michael McDonald of the Doobie Brothers.
Right.
Mike
the
McDonald.
Ravens.
Different guy.
Not
as good of a voice.
You don't know me.
Yeah. Not the voice of an angel, Hutton. This is a different Mike McDonald.
That's right. He's been hit with a 1-year show cause, but I mean, there's a reason why he's now the defensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens and playing for John, not Jim Harbaugh. And their OC and their tight ends coach, I believe, also expected to be hit with some penalties from the NCAA. But, Chad, penalty here is light if you look at it from a 4-game suspension and what Harbaugh and what Michigan will be missing on the sideline for their first 4 out of the gate.
Bruce Pearl lied about a barbecue that happened that would have been legal 2 weeks later, but happened 2 weeks earlier. And he bold-faced lied to the NCAA about it. He got a 5-year show cause because of that. Jim Harbaugh was asked about taking players out to eat when he shouldn't for a lunch and asked who picked up the bill, and he said, I don't remember.
I don't recall.
I don't recall. And they're claiming he will not sign anything that says that he lied about it. Only that he truly did not recall. Does not remember who paid for the lunch. And he is going to be suspended for East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green, and Rutgers. This is a huge win for Jim Harbaugh. Now, I'm not one to stand up here and pound on this desk right now and say the NCAA has all authority to lay the hammer on Michigan football for COVID access violations and illegally Zooming workouts during COVID-19, whatever. I truly don't care about any of that stuff anymore. But this is also laughable. Now, this is just what's proposed from Michigan. The NCAA does not have to accept this, but it does sound like from Ross Dellinger's report, they are inclined to accept it. The max penalty that I'm reading is 6 games.
6 games, yeah.
That he could get.
For lying.
For this level 1 violation of lying the way he did. So I guess 4 games is a decent compromise. But I look at these games, I went and looked. The only line available right now, point spread, is the opener against East Carolina. 35.5 points is what Michigan is favored by. Hutton, I think that you could take the offense and I could take the defense, and we could show up in Ann Arbor the week of that game and probably win by a solid 10 points in this game if we were coaching in this one. So I think Michigan will be fine with these penalties.
And by the way, the infractions committee can take it up to 6. It would be Nebraska and Minnesota. That would be games 5 and 6. And only one Power 5 and same as conference opponent in Rutgers in the first. I mean,
4. Those are tougher. And Minnesota should be tougher than Nebraska this year. That would be a blow to not have Jim Harbaugh for that game. But also games that I believe with the staff in place and with an interim coach, they could still start 6-0 even if he missed all 6.
Northwestern president Michael Schill says that Derek Gregg, their athletic director, is going to remain as the AD. There have been no discussions about removing him from that post, overseeing the athletic program, that they had a 6-month investigation on multiple, not just the football program, but multiple issues and lawsuits and allegations have been thrown Northwestern's way over the last couple of weeks here. And Schill, the president, making his first public statements other than quotes in a press release since July 10th, I believe, was the last time we've heard from him. And he told the Northwestern student newspaper that he is not going to do anything with Gregg and the university and the committee. The board is not going to do anything with their AD because most of the allegations, most of the detail from the investigation came prior to his arrival in 2021, and that they can't tie any individuals to hazing. Although Matt McPherson is one of the longtime assistants at Northwestern that was named recently in a lawsuit that Schill mentioned, but that's really the only name we've heard throughout this case. And he went on to detail why it was overwhelming support within the closed doors of letting Fitzgerald go, but that's the only one other than their baseball coach.
We'll get more into this a little bit later. My first response to this statement about his AD was, man, it's going to be awkward when he has to fire this guy after these 2 external investigations. But then I thought, oh, no, it won't, because Michael Schill, Derek Schill sounds better. Yeah. Michael Schill.
And you had Derek Gregg.
Yeah, but by the way, Schill is the perfect name for this guy, last name. President Michael Schill of the Northwestern University has no problem backtracking because this guy wants to be lauded as some hero because he was a leader that was able to admit fault after 2 days, after giving a 2-week suspension. And he came back and said, you know what good leaders do? They come back and they say where they're wrong. And then 3 days later, I come back and I fire the coach. All because I didn't read the full report initially.
Just a summary.
Just read the raw summary. You know, I listened to the investigators. What I took from that was I was looking for any reason to not fire the coach because I didn't want to. I heard 4 paragraphs from the investigator that gave me cause to not fire the coach. So I suspended him for 2 weeks. Then I came back when I saw this report from your fine publication, the student newspaper, by the way, who's done all the digging on this.
Done a great job.
I saw that and I thought, maybe I should do a little bit more and do a little bit more digging and find out more. Oh, now the coach is fired. This is a laugh riot throughout. This has been completely botched by the university, and Michael Schill is most to blame. And I expect all of them eventually to lose their job. More coming on this later. But maybe this guy's got photos on people, don't know. Maybe he's great with the English department, don't know. He's terrible at running an athletic department as a president, and so far his AD's been awful as well. I expect all of them to be gone by the end of this.
If it's about leadership, if it's about the academic standards and seeing if the athletic program meets that, the man that's overseeing the academic standards is following a protocol that has been laughable. Coming up, Curt Schilling joins us. We find out his take on Ohtani and the best trade possible if the Angels are going to. That's next.
Pat Fitzgerald has been fired. Pat Fitzgerald, the beleaguered, the weirdo, I guess, or his weird players, has been fired by Northwestern University. And the Northwestern children, the players, are not happy about it. They are not taking it well. Well, I ask you, Northwestern players. In fact, I just put out a video to Northwestern players that are mad. And they're mad because, well, the old coach. The old coach got blank canned because, well, the players decided it was a good idea to get naked, do naked crawls, naked claps, naked soap up themselves in front of the shower and make players run through because the players of Northwestern really are perverted. I mean, I'll never understand it. Now, I got guys saying, well, Bobby Knight, you guys hazed just in a different way, yelling and screaming. Yeah, you're right. We did. Tough. You don't like it? So what? But we never did the nudity thing. We never did the sexual assault thing. We never did the stuff, hey, we're going to slap you and dry hump you. At some point, the players, don't you agree, the players of Northwestern got to look themselves in the mirror and say, you know what? This is kind of on us. You know what? We caused a lot of this. You know what? We shouldn't have done that. Now, every time I see a Northwestern player from now on, I'm like, yeah, you're a weirdo. Used to be every time I saw a Northwestern player, I'd be like, man, you're a tough dude. You played for a tough coach, played for a high-end academic institution. I'd hire you in a second. Now I'm like, yeah, you got a bunch of weirdos running around there. Now I'm like, what in the hell are you doing there in the locker room at Northwestern? And I told you yesterday that this firing was coming because of this one reason. When you have to have outside people monitor your locker room because your players are perverts, because your coach allows it, because it's a culture of somehow, some way naked hazing. And no one's denying the hazing, by the way. So it's not like I'm speaking out of school. Sure, Fitzgerald, whatever, is a great dude. Sure, he is the face of Northwestern. I would argue he's the most important figure in the history of Northwestern athletics. Nobody's not saying good dude. But he did what a lot of dumb meat-headed coaches do. He got on his little mount. He's got his little pillar. He's got his little kingdom. And on top of the kingdom is him. And he got to thinking he was untouchable because no coach with any common sense would allow that in this day and age. I don't know what they were doing back when Bear Bryant was having guys out at camp. I don't know what they were doing when Kay first started. I don't know what they were doing at Indiana when Knight first started. I only know what I've been involved in, and it's never involved dry humping other men or nudity. Just saying. in the locker room, naked, on my team. Never. Anywhere, actually, but never. I used to give you a ball tap once in a while out in public just to say hello. But I got to tell you, it's just the weirdest thing. And none of these players are taking any accountability. You know what they're doing? They're doing the Biden strategy. This went from the Bob Knight strategy of round up all the players, ex-players, whoever, and talk great things about this strong man. Look at his chin. Yeah, that's what they do.
Glad you're with us for Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network. 6th and Peabody, our location, with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Coming up later in today's show, Senator Tommy Tuberville will be with us, and Clay Travis. Right now, we say hello. Kurt Schilling joins us. Got the sweet beard going and everything. A lot to talk about.
What's up, guys?
Hey.
I love having you back on the show, man. Hope things are well.
Always a pleasure. Yeah, I'm actually in the mountains of Pennsylvania right now.
Can't complain, right?
No.
Ohtani, it's a two-part question. I think maybe the answer is different, maybe it's not. Will the Angels trade Ohtani, and should the Angels trade Ohtani?
I don't know if they will. They absolutely should. I don't think they're a legitimate player in his free agency. I think that, and because I don't think that they're going to do anything from a ball club perspective that Shohei Ohtani's going to look at and go, okay, we're going to be way better next year. I don't think they're going to do that, because part of the reason probably will be because of the contract that he gets, because that will preclude them. And listen, with the talent that they have, they should already be winning, right? The Rangers are playing the type of season everybody expects the Angels to have. And so I don't think they're going to be players. I think they deal him. I think the deal and the return on that investment is going to be 100% dependent on the team they trade with. And I know that's an obvious thing to say, but if they make a deal with the Yankees, the prospect package is going to be, I think, far more lucrative than if they make a deal with the Diamondbacks, because the Diamondbacks know they'll be renting the guy for a couple months, and the Yankees will believe in their heart of hearts that not only are they renting him, but they're going to sign him long term.
I want to ask about the Yankees piece of that, because I look at the two teams in that city, Yankees and Mets, and I want to ask you the question, who can turn it around quicker? I know the Yankees' record looks better right now, but all things considered, division they play in, resources, allocation they've already made into their roster, which of the New York teams could turn this thing around quicker and be a team that could win the division next year?
I don't know. Yes. Both. They're both. Here's the thing: if either of those teams went on an 11-game winning streak, in addition to everybody being excited, nobody would be shocked. No one, both of those teams could run off 20 straight, and nobody would be going, "Oh my God, nobody saw this coming." Everybody would be saying, "This is who we thought they would be." Both of those teams are that club. Now, injuries have taken a toll, and all the things to go with that. I think Scherzer and Verlander have underperformed to some degree. Obviously, the injuries in the Yankee roster. It's tough for me because I'm very close personally with both the managers in those cities. And I know them to be exceptional guys, managers and people. And, as I've transitioned from being a player, I've come to, and I always believe this as a player too. I remember very vividly in 2000 when I got traded to the Diamondbacks at the deadline, and I was part of the reason we fell out of the race. I had a bad September, and Buck got fired at the end of that season. I felt extremely responsible for part of that happening. And so, I have a close connection with both those guys. I feel for both of them. I've communicated with both of them. I know that they're both exactly what you would hope your manager would be. Hey, listen, it is what it is. We got to get out of it tomorrow. And the problem now is that you're running out of tomorrows. And both fan bases, as you guys well know, they're incredibly irrational because they win opening day and it's already, we're going to win 145 games this year. They lose 2 in a row in April and it's, oh my God, fire the manager. I feel like Steve Cohen is kind of kept himself distant from that. I mean, because listen, was the Steinbrenner era not run by the media in the sense that every time the media got on some crusade, Mr. Steinbrenner reacted because he thought that that's what the fans were thinking, and he was a fan. I loved him for it. But with Aaron, I think that there's going to be a lot of patience because you just have to know the guy to understand. And I guarantee you, he's sitting there saying, "Listen, if they fire me tomorrow, I don't want to be fired, obviously, but I did it the way I wanted to do it, and it didn't work." I don't think it's not working because of him, though. I think both teams are horribly underperforming. I think they've been hit by injuries like everybody else, but to some degree, I think that they've both had a disproportionately, not disproportionate number, but the talent level of their injury roster is probably much higher than other clubs.
Kurt Schilling with us on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. You've always been you give praise for the most part for your managers that we've heard on this show. You have any stories from seasons where the clubhouse is like, man, we got to get this. The manager's got to go. Because I guess the owners in this case, is it partially because they aren't getting that feedback from the clubhouse? Is that part of it?
Well, listen, the only thing the owners hate worse than losing money is bad press. And they abhor negative media for, because again, these guys are in a group of people of yes men and women who their lives, they're never told no, they're never denied. No one ever talks bad about them in their circles. So, they get their publicity from their sports teams, and they also get their derision and the criticism from their fans as well. I'll tell you a couple things. One of the things that Terry Francona said to me, I never ever forgot this, was, you're fired the day you're hired. They just don't put that date on your contract. And that's a very unique way of looking at it in my perspective, because you got to remember, Terry and I was very closely tied with him. I was the starting pitcher in the first game he ever managed, first postseason game he ever won. All those, our careers stuck together for a while. So I got to see the evolution of Terry Francona. And even though he is one of the nastiest human beings off the field you could ever imagine, in every possible fraternity frat guy kind of way, his people skills are off the charts. And one of the things that all three of those guys bring to the table, to Boone and Buck and Tito, is there generally isn't a table flipping incident in the clubhouse. They don't allow those things to happen, and they generally understand for the most part that the club, if your team can't run itself, you're probably not coaching a winning club. If you have to be in the clubhouse and be in the mix, then that's a problem. And I played on. I was in Villiers almost 10 years, and we had the 1993 season, and that was it. But I never looked at it as. Terry came in, and he got fired after a couple of years of bad teams, but he never had talent to win. And so, it wasn't his fault, but, the one thing that they'll tell you, when the team's losing, you can't fire the players. And, if you're going to mess with the coaching staff and all the other stuff, you got to start with it, because then you start manipulating chemistry when you start replacing hitting coaches or firing a pitching coach. And, it's much easier to cut the head off and have somebody come in and do those kind of things. But, nowadays it's a different thing too, guys. There's 2 pitching coaches. There's 3 hitting coaches. There's an assistant this, an assistant that. I think there's far too many chefs in the kitchen, number one. And I know why they want, and not everybody hits the same way. And the good coaches don't teach the same way anyway. The good coaches understand everybody's an individual, but now it's almost like they're trying to have 3 or 4 coaches for all the hitters because everybody's different. And I don't know that that's actually a good thing. I don't believe it is, because I don't believe you can get a universal message from 4 different coaches. And that was always a thing. If you look back at the 93 Phillies, which, by the way, we're having a 30-year reunion next month in Philadelphia,
awesome.
Which is just terrifying to me. Well, it's awesome, but it's terrifying. And by the way, I just happened to be going around the internet, and the George Brett, remember the Pine Tar incident, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that picture is in black and white. We had color photography then. I remember it. But, like, the picture is in black and white. I feel like I'm looking at pictures of when I was playing in World War II or something. It's, like, horrifying. But, no, this is a very interesting time.
I didn't know you played with Ted Williams also with the Red Sox.
What's that?
I didn't know you played with Ted Williams also with the Red Sox back in the day. It's great.
But it's going to be very interesting because I think if you look at the New Yorks, are the GMs going into the deadline knowing that they have a manager who they're not going to have next year? Do they go into the deadline thinking, hey, listen, if I don't, and the managers have to be wondering, listen, if I don't get help at the deadline, are they just saying basically, hey, listen, you're on your own and you're probably not coming back? I mean, there's a lot of stuff from a player's perspective. I was the guy who was mentioned and involved in a bunch of different discussions and then deadline deals. I never had a problem with. I always found it exhilarating in the sense that when I got to be established, it was like, wow, somebody really. My 1997 All-Star Game memory is of the fans in Cleveland basically spending 5 days pitching me on what the Cleveland school system was like and how awesome it would be. All I had to look at was the fact they had Manny and Tommy and Albert Bell and Kenny Lofton, but it's an exciting time, I think. And there's a thing I think to be said for a Max Scherzer or a Justin Verlander. When you go from that disappointing 7 games out, then you jump over to a Texas and you're 5 games up, right? The start, there's an emotional piece that I can remember going from Philadelphia when I got traded to the Diamondbacks. We're 50 out. And all of a sudden, I'm pitching in Florida 2 days later for the Diamondbacks team that's 2 games up in first place on the Giants. In the game, my mentality is how I pitched didn't change, but everything about the outcome of the game was a much bigger deal. And I love that. I absolutely love that.
Well, we've turned into something good here, so I'm gonna lean right into it. You're a hockey guy, also, Kurt. I know that.
Oh,
Peter Laviolette was a guy who coached here in Nashville. Great coach, really good the first 2 to 3 years everywhere he goes, but has a reputation as someone whose personality can wear on a club, right? And after 3 years, it's a law of diminishing returns, and then suddenly you got to make a change. Then he can go somewhere else and get that organization going, but then he's got to cycle out. Can you recall a manager or a player, even someone that, talking to people around the league, that would fit that description, that over the course of the long haul, there is a law of diminishing returns because of that person's personality?
You know this as well as I do. This goes up and down the spectrum. There are players who have a career pattern. They're hot April, May guys, and they always struggle in September. People are creatures of habit. Those aren't coincidences that this guy goes to a place, builds a club for 2 or 3 years, and all of a sudden after year 4, people are like, get him the hell out of here. That's not a one-off. That continues to happen, and that generally is people. That's who he is. That's what he's. I mean, I have heard enough people talk about him being a brilliant hockey mind, right? But those same people talk about the fact that he just doesn't have it in him to endear himself to people for the long term. The mistake for me is it's that in baseball and football too. It's signing that guy who's been suspended 4 times because he's failed drug tests, thinking you're going to be the team to turn him around. Thinking we're going to be the club that this guy's going to suddenly begin to play for. It's the Antonio Brown, right? You're getting what you're getting, and if you bring him in, I think you bring him in with that mindset of, listen, for the next 2.5, 3 years, everything's going to be simpatico here. We're going to be on the same page. But I guess what I would ask you guys, I'm wondering, is he aware of it? Does he understand it? Because it's not something you could bring up to him and have him go, really? I never thought about it like that.
I think people who are like that inherently don't know it. I think that lack of self-awareness is part of the problem.
Well,
and I don't think they'll ever get it.
The dumbest person in the room is usually the last person to know.
Yeah.
Right.
Kurt,
or a liberal.
We've got a minute left here. We know your thoughts on Scott Rowland. What do you think of when you think of Fred McGriff?
Class. That's the first word that comes to mind, is class. The guy played the game hard. He played the game right. He played the game. He reminded me, if you guys remember Ryan Sandberg talking about the fact that his father taught him, you always respect the uniform. I always felt like Fred McGriff was always that guy. You would never throw at Fred McGriff. Even if you had to hit somebody on Fred McGriff's team, it wouldn't be him. Because, first of all, he's a big dude and beat the hell out of you. But second, more importantly, he was a class guy. He was a respect guy. He played the game hard. He played the game right. And he did it in an era of where the media, ESPN, was a focal point. And he did it in a way that he didn't bring attention to himself, which is why I think it took him so long to get in the Hall of Fame, and he shouldn't have.
Kurt Schilling, you can check out the Kurt Schilling Baseball Show with OutKick. That drops every Tuesday and Friday. Enjoy the mountains and the 30-year reunion. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm here with my buddy.
Nice. Got the pup.
We always appreciate this. Thanks for being flexible in the time today, and we'll catch up soon.
Love being on, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, this is always fun.
We like
Thanks,
talking
Kurt.
ball. Yeah, Kurt Schilling there. And again, check out the podcast at outkick.com.
Some serious personalities on that Philly squad from '93. I'd love to be
book,
a fly
hard
on the
as nails.
wall
Oh my!
at the 30-year anniversary of the '93 Phillies. The '93 Phillies, of course, I didn't want to bring this up with Kurt on, but that was famously the Joe Carter Blue Jays World Series ending. That was the ending of their season in the World Series.
Chad, I don't think I would want to be a fly on the wall for the name, image, likeness talks on Capitol Hill. Because it's going to be
seems pretty
tough.
boring.
Yeah, but Tommy Tuberville, senator, is trying to push through new legislation with Senator Joe Manchin. He's going to join us later in today's show, but we'll dive into maybe the periphery of what can happen and what will or won't work. That's next.
Two biggest social media giants, Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, are set to battle it out, and I'm here on Broadway asking people who they put their money on. Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk? They're going to fight each other. Who do you think's going to win?
I think Mark's got him.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you think that?
Because he's a man.
Okay, and Elon Musk isn't?
Oh, well, of course, he's got money.
Okay.
He's got money. Money, well, you know, money's money.
Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg in a fight?
I don't know. I'm going to go with Musk.
Why?
It just seems like he's a little bit younger, a little bit smarter.
You just got a good feeling about him?
I got a good feeling.
Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg?
Musk.
Why?
He trains. That guy's going to beat his.
But Mark Zuckerberg is actually training jiu-jitsu for 9 months.
Not happening. Elon Musk all day. Elon Musk.
Why do you think?
He has no soul. I mean, I think he's definitely just going to no holds barred.
Elon Musk.
Why do you think that?
I don't know. I feel like he's stronger and smarter.
Oh, Elon Musk.
All the way? Why?
All the way. He's an animal. Think about it.
Mark Zuckerberg's been training for 9 months jiu-jitsu. You think Elon Musk can take him?
Yeah, I think he can take him.
Elon, that oh God, stop playing with Elon. Elon really do this out here, for real.
I hope Elon
Really? Why do you think so?
got better ideas.
Zuckerberg's like 5'7", 155. Musk is 6'1", 190. But Zuckerberg's been training jiu-jitsu for 9 months. Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg, who's going to win in a fight?
Oh, Elon Musk. No doubt.
Why do you think so?
He's the GOAT. I've been seeing all the Twitter handles and all the talk, and I'm on Elon Musk's side. I'm ready for them to get in the WWE ring and then come off the top rope. That's what I want to see. I want to see a people's elbow to Mark Zuckerberg.
If one was more likely to be a lizard or a robot, who would it be?
Elon. Elon.
Okay.
I think Mark Zuckerberg will win.
Why do you think that?
Because I think he already trains MMA. So he's got like the prior experience and stuff. I mean, they're both billionaires, so they have the opportunity to get the best training. But I think Mark Zuckerberg will pull away with the win.
Elon Musk.
Why do you think so?
Because he's bigger.
Bigger, okay, but Mark Zuckerberg's been training jiu-jitsu for 9 months. Do you think that matters?
No.
Because Elon Musk's he's gonna learn and train, right? So
Yeah. I think he'll handle Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg's a lizard, right? So
he's a lizard, but does that help him?
I don't think so. I think Elon will squash the lizard.
Cage fight. Elon Musk is mental, so Elon Musk.
All it is just he's mental. He's mentally crazy. So
He just wouldn't care, would he?
Okay.
He'd just absolutely go for it. I think Zuckerberg would be a bit more refrained.
Okay.
If that should ever happen, which I doubt, but you never know, it'd be entertaining.
Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg?
Elon Musk.
Why?
Because my dad is in love with Elon Musk.
Okay.
I think I'm going to have to go with Zuckerberg. I mean, Threads just came out, so.
Who do you think would win?
Zuck.
Why do you think so?
He's not a real human. He's a robot.
So he'll use that to his advantage.
Yeah, and all the Krav Maga stuff too. Yeah.
Yeah. Who do you think would win in a fight, Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk?
Elon Musk.
Why do you think Elon Musk?
I think Elon's
He
smarter.
works with robots, so maybe he built a robot to fight for him.
But what if Mark Zuckerberg is a robot?
Oh, wow.
Then I might have to change my answer.
Who do you think is going to win?
Me.
Coming up, John McLean. We'll talk NFL headlines as training camps are underway across the NFL. Hot Mike with Hutton Withrow rolls on. Senator Tommy Tuberville will be with us in about an hour and 15 minutes from right now as the bill that he has discussed with us a couple of times here on the show on OutKick will hit the floor. The bipartisan legislation that they're hoping will set some guidelines. Chad, this isn't the first time that we have seen some sort of bill try to get pushed through. I don't get the sense that there's much optimism that we have a miracle happen and we have legislation moving forward after today. We'll talk with Senator Tuberville about that. But I am eager to see the reaction to the proposed legislation from all angles of college athletics, specifically college football, as we go into the season, from the administrators to the university to the players, from the collectives. There will be a lot of talking heads in this reacting to whatever is released.
Well, and we had Senator Tuberville on before, and he said, if you're looking to D.C. to solve your problem, that may not be the right place to look. And now he's got a bill that he's proposing with Senator Joe Manchin, and we've looked through the highlights of the bill, so we'll have questions for him with that. And I buy what he's saying. I think the problem with all this, Hutton, is that with Greg Sankey's address at SEC Media Days last week, there doesn't really seem to be a plan B. It's either this thing gets passed through Congress and the federal government can legislate how this is going to run moving forward. The NCAA lost their court case. They lost in the Supreme Court that, ruled unanimously that it was unlawful to not allow NIL, and now they've just given up. They said, we're not going to do anything else, or we'll continue to get sued and lose. So we're losers at this point. We're not going to be the ones to come up with it. Conferences, you figure it out. Conferences are saying, well, yeah, we got a lot of power, but we don't want that power. We don't want to open that door. Our presidents don't want us to open that door. We need the government to do it. And the government has kind of said, I don't know that we can make it happen the way things are split right now in this country. I don't know if we can get anything passed, but yet here we are talking about another bill. I hope there's some resolution. Maybe this is the one that works, but I think everyone's a little bit skeptical. Talked to Shannon Terry and Grant Firkin yesterday about it, and they're very skeptical as well.
And how much of the bill is focused on just giving the NCAA the power back through Charlie Baker, who's now the new president, right?
Yeah.
Who was not there whenever Mark Emmert stepped aside and let this free-for-all happen. But there are also other sides to this, from revenue sharing and so much more, that it's tough to narrow down in a bipartisan bill right now, given the landscape of where we are in college athletics. And again, the free-for-all with the transfer portal and name, image, likeness. Urban Meyer was on Don't At Me with Dan Dockich earlier this week, yesterday, and said, look, in terms of NIL, Tim Tebow. Urban believes Tim Tebow could make as much as $10 million at Florida off of name, image, likeness. I mean, I see that, and I initially think, really? And then I think, well, I mean, Florida just offered Rashada a boatload of money that they couldn't pay. But, I mean, the guy's a Heisman winner. He's got a statue. He's got quotes yes, absolutely he could have. Given today's landscape, I don't think that's far-fetched at all, the 10 million number, the double-figure number, considering where, I mean, the millions that are being reportedly handed out, Chad, to freshmen that we haven't even seen play yet. In this case, he would have earned it on the field.
Yeah, and I think that, and I'm looking now at Livy Dunn and how much she's estimated to be worth. I'm looking at a number right now that's at $3.5 million that she's made so far. I think that number's only going to go up. That's just a reference point. I look up Livy Dunn because Tim Tebow would have been the ideal NIL person in that he would have made so much more based on his celebrity in college. And I think even in his era, probably was more valuable than now because there weren't as many options in media. There weren't as many options in everything in the digital space as there are now. He was more of a celebrity in 2007 than he would be in 2023 because the nature of media in the time, and he may have been even worth. I don't buy much of what Urban Meyer says. I buy this, and he may even be going under what he could be valued at over the course of his 4-year career in college. I think he can make more than $10 million. And I'm not talking about just collective money. I'm talking about legit sponsorship that he would have made.
I mean, Livy Dunn's the example to use, but also consider, like, Tebow was a silhouette. That's how, like, if you look at brands, you know, he's taking a knee and he's got the fist on his chin, you know, for the prayer.
Yeah.
That was a silhouette that people were doing across the high school stadiums across the country at the time. That's even more valuable, seeing a pose and thinking Tebow mania, and the back and forth with those who like him, those who don't like him, but everyone's paying attention, and he won, massively successful on the field, and was someone you would want as a spokesman off the field as well. Can't be said for everyone that was playing in the swamp and in the locker room with Tim Tebow. Swamp Kings is the new Netflix deep dive into the Florida Gators program.
This movie goes hard into what was going on there. I don't know that it will. I think it will based on what they've done with the other parts of the series.
It's got to, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It has to. Otherwise, like, what are they doing? Why choose this if you're not going to go at it from every single angle, including, everything from Aaron Hernandez to Tebow? I mean, that's the spectrum we're talking about in that locker room from the champs at the time. Urban Meyer on Don't At Me with Dan Dockich had this to say about the new Netflix series.
But you and I both know that, great teams sometimes don't connect with the fans. Great teams sometimes just, they're popular, but then there had to be something with this particular group. I saw the trailer and guys are like, man, this is incredible. This is big, and the stories that you're telling. There had to be some kind of human element that connected these guys to people.
Yeah, they were a cast of characters. They celebrated and they had fun on campus, off campus, and that's well documented. We had some issues that we all had to deal with, and that's kind of one of the reasons I wanted to get involved, because there was a narrative that these guys were bad people. Certainly we had some guys on the team that, went on afterwards and did, one guy in particular did horrific stuff. But during that era, it was a team that, like I said, a cast of characters, but I love those guys. And the fact if someone said they're bad people, I'd fight that, say that's not true. Did we have some issues like a lot of other college teams did? Certainly. But I'll tell you what, the fans, and that's probably why this show is going to get so much attention. People identified with them. They love these guys, love them as players, and a lot of love them as characters.
Urban Meyer there, former head coach of that team he's talking about, which will be, we hope, is a deep dive into Swamp Kings on the Florida Gators. And He's not saying Aaron Hernandez's name there. They treat it like Michigan won't say Ohio State won't say Michigan.
Yeah,
the
there
team
was
up north.
certainly one guy who did some pretty horrific things. I hear that and I think tomato. Bad people, not bad people. Call it whatever you want. I hesitate to say there are a bunch of people, the many people out there that are just truly irredeemable. Mm-hmm. Maybe Aaron Hernandez was one of those people, but I don't buy that with most people. So I'm not going to sit there and say, yes, that was a majority of bad people on the Florida team. But what I will say about Urban Meyer is what I've always said about Urban Meyer. There were some bad people on the Florida team. Do I think that was a majority of the team? No. Do I think other great college football teams have had off-field issues? Absolutely. We're seeing it right now at Georgia. Do I think that what happened at Florida during this time and the reason that Netflix is approaching them about a documentary about that time was exceptional and not in a good way when it comes to off-field incidents? 1,000% yes. And he can put his head in the sand and spin it however he wants and come up with this PR twist on what went down. Bottom line was Urban Meyer, hell of a football coach, could get great recruits, could get the best out of his team on the field. Hell of a hypocrite when it comes to talking about off-field issues and team discipline based on his own track record. And I believe Swamp Kings will show us just that. And when I hear that, I think, okay, yeah, they're not all bad people. I'll grant you that. But to act like it was just what we're dealing with, a lot of them, same stuff that everybody else was. No, it went to an extreme at Florida during that time period. And you can go back and read the police blotter to understand what I'm talking about.
Not just on the football program. We've detailed everyone on campus at that time. And, they're not taking the championships away. They're not taking Heisman's away, right?
No.
I mean, those stay and remain. The stories there, in this case, going more public than, what we may have seen from other football teams where, stuff happens, not to the Hernandez level, but stuff happens that a team that doesn't win at this level. So they're not remembered. You're not doing a documentary or something like this from Netflix years later, like you do here, with all of the names, the recognizable figures, and then the superstardom of Tebow. I can't wait for this.
And again, I mean, no one's going to feel sorry for Urban Meyer. He won 2 national titles there.
Right.
If you ask Florida fans now, would you take Urban Meyer back? They'd probably say, hell yes. Mm-hmm. The guy's multiple national championship winning head coach. So he did just fine in the midst of all of this chaos during that time period.
Chad, you mentioned you, for the most part, don't believe that everyone, or there are people that are irredeemable. There can be some. Maybe Aaron Hernandez
there are some,
was.
But I don't think there are many.
Maybe it's the family. I mean, have you seen the story with his brother now?
Oh, man.
Dennis, he goes by DJ Hernandez, has been arrested. So he skipped out on a court appearance after throwing a brick at ESPN in Bristol. He lives in Bristol. He's been arrested for the 4th time this year. Police concerned that he was going to be involved in a school shooting. He was planning a school shooting. He sent text messages to an ex-girlfriend and I believe another family member about planning shootings at the University of Connecticut and Brown University. And they have the text to show that, and then, of course, the troubled past and the history of just this year alone leading up to all of that. This is crazy. And, I'm glad they found this out. I'm glad whatever was sent to these family members or the ex-girlfriend was reported based on what is shown in these documents in the arrest warrant. Because this was, so whenever he threw the brick at ESPN or whatever, we were thinking, they must have done something on Aaron Hernandez that he was pissed off about.
No, it was just something from the past.
Yeah. And this happened the same day he should have been in court, which was whenever he was sending this, allegedly.
This sounds very Minority Report, the Tom Cruise movie. I mean, there should be a pre-crime division about these things. But every time we have someone that does something horrendous like shoots up a school, we always end up going back and finding out, man, they were interviewed by FBI agents before.
Signs.
Or they threatened about something, or this happened or that happened. And the question we're always left with is, why were they not just taken into custody or put into a mental facility or something at that time? How did we let this person slip through the cracks? I hear all of, and it's not just one story. I hear all of this, and I think to myself, even though he's yet to commit the brutal act he's talked about, this is someone I do not want to see in society for a long time because the possibility that it might happen.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the answer is to that other than just institutionalizing someone, which is probably what needs to happen here. But we've got all of the signs,
social media
of
posts,
something awful eventually happening that I would love to prevent in any way possible. And Aaron Hernandez's brother needs to go away for a while and be dealt with mentally and be in a place that is not easy to escape.
Charged with threatening is what they were able to charge him with. And there's a person that told police, several people apparently came forward warning about this. And one of the things in the police report that someone said was Dennis is extremely sick. His mental health is continuing to deteriorate. You know, that's not just on a text message to his ex-girlfriend. He's posting on social media things like, will I kill? Absolutely. I've warned my enemies to pay up front. Thank goodness they found this ahead of time.
Yep.
And we're not talking about what should have happened. Headlines next.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I just think the way Anthony Bass handled this was so sloppy.
Oh, I think it's perfect.
And
I mean,
what he reposted and then how he did it.
He bent the knee and bowed. He was going to catch the ceremonial first pitch.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
When you're behind closed doors, when you're talking to plant managers, when you're having meetings, when you're with the team, was there an acknowledgement of any of this, an acknowledgement of the situation, the boycott, and then the doubling down about moving away from the fratty image?
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people. I'm pissed off about this. I never did it before in my life, but Trump is being cheated. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, a bold taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that, the second hour is here. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network. Glad you're with us. Coming up in 20 minutes, John McLean, the very latest from NFL training camps. Who's there, who's not, and why. Contract negotiations and more for your favorite teams. An hour from right now, Senator Tommy Tuberville rejoins the show. NIL legislation, which he and Senator Joe Manchin are attempting to get pushed through the Senate floor. They will announce the legislation in a bill that they have drafted that will be official today. Can't wait to chat about the bullet points and the important emphasis that he's stressing with what these guidelines would be emphasized for. Plus, Clay Travis joins us here on site at 6th and Peabody. That's also in about an hour and 15 minutes from now.
We got great stuff we're going to talk about in this segment. Something that's not so great, though, Hutton, I want to have a studio game coming up where I have a physical on Thursday, and we should take a poll on how bad my blood work will be. We could have everyone. We could do like a silent, like everyone can put in a different ailment that will be in that guess, considering that I just had 2 weeks without my family in town, and my 2 weeks consisted of a diet of fast food and alcohol for those 2 weeks. So just how bad will the blood work be for Chad come Thursday? And in fact, I thought, you know what? I told my wife when she got back, lots of fruits and vegetables this week. And her response was, you do this every time where you try to trick your physical. Like you try to trick your blood work by a week of healthy living. The point of the physical is just to go in as is, so you're not tricking the blood work into something different.
What you're going in as is not as is, typically.
Yeah, it's not. This would not be my normal lifestyle that I'm going as.
You're just trying to get back to even.
I'm trying to get back to balanced a little bit, and I thought, no fast food this week, more fruits and vegetables. Had a very healthy dinner.
You sound like
yesterday.
McGuire or Sosa in the steroid era.
Yeah, my androstenedione levels are
back down. I need to get back to level.
But my andro's down. I had a healthy eating day yesterday, and today took my daughters to the park, and afterward they wanted to go on a daddy-daughter date to McDonald's. So guess what I did? I had a Big Mac, I had fries.
Yeah, why not?
So I'm just in an endless death cycle at this point, and I feel like the blood work in my physical on Thursday is going to show me that. They just check like certain things, like urine reports, basically, that they'll give you there. Like, is there too much protein in your urine? Is something they always check for. I don't know what that means. Diabetic, I don't know. They're like, your proteins look good in your urine. That's what I always hear back after the physical. But it takes about a week to get the blood work back. And that's the one where typically it's like, usually the last two have been okay, but there's always one that's like sugar a little high, or triglycerides, something I've had problems with in the past. A lot of meat eating is an issue with that. Your fat in your blood. Anyway,
I always feel like we're going to be scolded whenever we're called back for the results.
Well, I open it up to the studio where everyone can just submit to Hutton.
We must.
Like, put one thing that you think will be in the blood work, and then we can unveil who was right and who was wrong. Anonymously. And then I read them on air.
And we try to guess who it was.
I say yes or no to every guess from everyone in the studio.
You mentioned the death cycle, the endless death cycle of your eating habits.
Yeah.
The death cycle
right down the drain is where I'm going.
Trying to, not just get away from the discussion of if Colin Kaepernick is going to make his way back to the NFL or not. Nike wants you to believe that he's trading for a return, even though, he's had opportunities to return to spring leagues. He's not doing that because his brand's more valuable off the field than it is on, and that's what Nike's playing into here.
Man, he looks great. Looks good. Arm looks strong. He got a rocket of an arm. Look at that, man. He got about a good 6 years left.
In a video of CeeDee Lamb and Derrick Henry.
D-ball's very nice. Man, he's still capped now. Still got it to him.
Najee Harris.
The Nike athletes.
Cap got a real racket for an arm, man, so it was different. Real good ball placement. Hey, it's easy when you got a quarterback that's been through it. He make it easy for it.
So then
Derrick
Henry here.
Darts. Receivers look smooth. Says it was a great day.
Yeah, we also saw Stetson Bennett throwing 70-yard bombs during OTAs. Nike here is playing into the Kaepernick's training to return. Again, they've got him as an athlete as well under their contract.
Look, I think you can make a lot of people look good when you slow things down and show it a certain way.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Harrison Ford just did an Indiana Jones movie at 81, and there's a lot of action sequences in it where I'm like, man,
CGI.
This guy's really getting after it. He's got great range of motion for someone who's 81 in that fight scene.
Yeah.
So you can speed things up or slow things down or shoot it a certain way to make it look good. I got to be honest, though, watching that video, he still did not look that good. Like, his throwing motion
that's him.
Did not look good. Watching the quarterback series and watching, like, Kirk Cousins throw it, the guy's whipping it in there in practice.
His throwing motion didn't look good the last time he played in 2016, though.
Yeah, it's not great. And also, Hutton, I thought to myself, what could the team at Nike make us look like if we went out there? If we could slow it down and I could throw a 10-yard out route to Derrick Henry, could they slow it down to a level and have Derrick Henry say it where people think, man, you know, that Chad Withrow could be an NFL quarterback. Like, I marvel at the production skills of this.
Was it CeeDee Lamb that said he's got a good 6 years left? I mean, he's 35. CeeDee Lamb can already tell he's playing until 41.
I also laugh because, I mean, they were handed a script.
He hasn't played in 6 years.
They were handed a script, right? I mean, they're Nike athletes.
I don't know if it was a script.
I'm
sure they were asking,
how good he was.
like, what was it like with, catching passes from Cap against Air? And they were answering that.
Yeah, and also guys are typically slow to just crush someone, trying to make an NFL comeback.
Yeah.
I don't think they were going to air if someone was like, but got to be honest, he's really lost a lot last years. I thought that his throwing motion was odd before.
Got to be honest, I can tell why they haven't signed him.
Man, you know what it felt like? Catching balls from my dad. That's what it felt like. That was the velocity that I caught from his passes. I mean, look, do what you want. It's your athlete if you're Nike. The guy's not going to play in the NFL again.
Well, he had the tryout
if you want to hype him up as that, whatever.
And down in somewhere in Georgia, had the tryout. 8 or 9 teams went, and then it was more about if it was going to be the minimum salary or not. There's always that. And Chad, you've long said that, and you're right, that right now and then and now, the value for him is more off the field than on, brand-wise, because at this point, that's why Nike's doing this and trying to play up the Cap hype again, because they want to stir the pot for an athlete that they have under contract who, we haven't heard from or seen from in a while. And they've got this Nike Athlete Summit where they're out, shooting things and determining cleats and all that other stuff.
But his long-term value is in being a martyr.
Right. Well, that's all it can
Nike,
be right
Nike,
now.
like any company that wants to partner with someone that can make them profit.
Well, if he wanted to play, he could have played.
Yeah, I mean, I
know that
his
there's
use
a spring
to
league
Nike
that
is
offered
as
him
a martyr.
an option. So, no doubt.
Muhammad Ali didn't want to fight in the Vietnam War when he was drafted, and he went to jail because he wouldn't do it, right? But at the time, he was a draft dodger. That was a very negative thing. And then years later, he's heralded as a hero. Later on in life, I mean, I'm talking as Colin Kaepernick's PR guru right now, not as someone that believes in what he's saying. But if I want to spin this in a PR way, I'm saying, dude, you're going to win the Arthur Ashe Courage Award in 30 years. Don't play in the NFL. This is the best case scenario right now. You continue to write children's books about oppression, and then you can go and win a bunch of awards and be seen as this global humanitarian 25, 30 years from now. That's your legacy. It's not going to be a third-string quarterback for the Detroit Lions if you make a roster. It's not going to be in the USFL or the XFL. It's going to be as martyr Colin Kaepernick kneeled for his beliefs, and the racist NFL excommunicated him, and then 30 years later, you're going to be on the right side of history. That's what he's being pumped full of right now.
If barely a
That's
million
what Nike's selling to him.
If barely a million watch the ESPYs now, how many people will see the Arthur Ashe Courage Award handed out then?
That was the one that came to mind.
I know.
He's going to win a Nobel Peace Prize probably in 30 years to be a better one. He's going to get a congressional. He may have already had that, honestly. The Congressional Medal of Honor. I don't know what they give out. What is the civilian award that the president gives out? He's going to get all those things at some point if he continues on this path. And here's the other thing. Propaganda, that's advertising.
Yeah.
Advertising is propaganda. When you're watching a really well-done ad for something, that is propaganda. This is an advertisement for Colin Kaepernick with Nike athletes. It's all that it is. Does it make me angry? No. Does it make me a little bit sad for Colin Kaepernick's throwing motion and for the other good football players in the video? Yeah, a little. Makes me a little bit sad for them. But then I think that, they made money for that, and Nike pays them money, and then I'm less sad for them.
The Nike athletes. Who's going to make money is Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert. I'm surprised, Chad, that we've gotten to this point where they're not under a long-term contract right now. I want to get further into that with John McLean because there's not a lot of discussion there, publicly, I should say. We heard a lot about it from Kyler Murray a year ago, right? He's not going to play on whatever the minimum is for his final year before he gets tagged or the fifth-year options picked up. That's what the agent was saying. And then ultimately, Kyler Murray gets over $100 million guaranteed in his new contract with Arizona. We haven't heard the public talk, the agent spin. Things are quiet in Cincinnati and out in L.A. with the Chargers. More on that with John McLean. And honestly, things are quiet in regards to the running back situation too, because Saquon Barkley was all bark, no bite. And I don't blame him. This is the obvious decision to sign and get to camp and be with the team and make the $10 million plus. They've reworked the franchise tag, which is under the rules, the guidelines of what you can and can't do for a long-term extension. They gave him $2 million up front. He can earn another $1 million on top of that based on some likely to be earned incentives, comparing that to what he did last year in New York for the Giants offense. And he still gets the $10.1 million guaranteed. That was all a part of the franchise tag. You don't see this often. In fact, I was reading, like 2006, 2007 was the last time we saw a reworked franchise tag number to the value of the player here. But what this is Barkley knowing the value of where he is in the position he's playing. That's not his fault, but that's just the obvious detail that I think everyone admitted, but they still, at the position, held the Zoom call and were frustrated. And even in this reworked deal, they didn't remove the franchise tag clause for next season. The Giants can do it again. This one still counts. They can do it one more time, and if it happens next year, he's going to get paid over $13 million guaranteed. But point being, there's not enough unity within the players themselves that want to talk about the top of the running back position and what they're paid compared to other positions, because the players ultimately make sure they get theirs when they can, and this was Barkley's time to do that. Josh Jacobs will likely do the same, even though he's not reporting to Raiders camp. Doesn't have to. He can't get fined because he's not under contract currently because he didn't sign the franchise tag. But this now gives him leverage to get an extra $1 million or whatever up front and a guarantee now instead of weekly whenever the season gets here. And you show up and you play and you earn the next contract potentially. You don't fake injuries and do that sort of thing. This was inevitable. But, Chad, until we tying in Burrow and Herbert, until we see the quarterbacks unify and actually do what Lamar Jackson tried to do, players like at the top of their game, Saquon Barkley, have no chance but to be all bark, no bite, because that's what the quarterbacks have been. The quarterbacks are paid handsomely in comparison to the other positions, but it's not fully guaranteed like Deshaun Watson, but no one's fighting for that. Jackson wanted to, but it would take Burrow and Herbert and others who have signed, Jalen Hurts, go down the list. It would take others to actually come together and say, we're not playing either until we get what the high water mark is, which is Deshaun Watson in Cleveland.
Tavy lets me know Presidential Medal of Freedom was what I was looking for with Colin Kaepernick, that he may eventually win. Yes, I mean, this was the right outcome and the right decision for Saquon Barkley because he doesn't really have any other options. And I will give the Giants some credit for at least doing something a little bit different and working it out with this one-year deal where it at least appears he got some concession that he wanted. And he did. He got a little bit of a concession on it. And the Giants said, we do value you so much that we should just hold you to this franchise tag and that's it. But we want to work with you a little bit, but we can't go the full way that you want. So let's do this as a compromise. I like compromise like this. I don't like this for the running backs but this is the best they can do right now because the leverage is so minimal for that position.
Chad, coming up later this hour, your discussion on President Michael Schill, who's at Northwestern, and the job or lack thereof that has been done in the PR case for the university. And I want to see where you come from on it, because he said the university's not going to fire their athletic director. That may not be the only discussion that needs to be had. I think I have a feeling where you're headed there. I want to know from John McLean coming up where we are with Burrow and Herbert, but also why the players aren't trying to do more when they have the opportunity. And it's not running back specific. It is quarterback specific. And it's about the individual, not about the Players Association at the end of the day. And a great discussion headed our way in about 45 minutes with Senator Tommy Tuberville on name, image, likeness legislation and a new bill that's been drafted bipartisan through both Senator Tuberville and Senator Joe Manchin. Looking forward to that. Clay Travis is here on property here at 6th and Peabody. We'll have him in studio.
Very rare non-phone appearance by Clay today. Live
Gracing us with
in
his
person.
presence.
Yeah.
He was didn't he just look in the door and wave at you and blow you a kiss?
He did. He blew me a kiss, and then he gave me the middle finger, and he walked away, and he took a shot of moonshine, and then he went about his business. Actually, he did the shot of moonshine, then gave me the middle finger, and then went about his business.
We're about to
it was
do
in
that as well.
order.
John McLean next on
That's
Hot
how
Mic with Hutton and Withrow.
That's how today's show will end.
Of male advantage plaguing women's sports, it only recently came to light, I feel like, for so many, including myself. I was really only became aware of this when I was slapped across the face with it in regards to Leah Thomas. But as you alluded to, this is something that you had experience of. You were well ahead of your time. I mean, 43 years ago, you saw this. And so would you be able to touch on what that experience looked like competing against the East Germans?
And we would have East German athletes turning up to things like, even like the Olympics, and we'd never, ever seen them before. And they would literally arrive and smash world records. They looked and sounded like, very masculine. They had deep voices, very large Adam apple, bad skin, through no fault of their own. I've never had a problem with these individuals. They were pawns of a horrible system. The people I have a big problem with is the IOC. And they allowed this to happen for 20 years. They even had East German doctors sitting on international doping panels. So every time we came up with a way to try and catch them, they would find a way to avoid being caught. And this was allowed to go on for 2 decades. So imagine the number of females that missed out. However, those females only missed out at international competitions, and they predominantly missed out in swimming, track and field, and rowing. What we've got now is 10 times worse, because this is happening across every single sport, at every single level, in every single country. So I've been pushing very hard to say, right, we need to have a female classification, however that looks. Me, ideally, I'd love to bring back sex tests. And then an open and inclusive category so that everyone is still welcome in sport. Because just like you, I'm sure, you want people to do sport. You want people to be physically active, to be healthy, because it helps us, both our body and our minds, and in a world at the moment with mental health, particularly in young girls, through the roof, we need people to be physically active. So it's the last thing in the world I would ever want to do is to ban anyone from sports. I just want to protect the opportunities for people that are biologically female to have equal chance of being able to win medals, put successes onto their onto their CV going forward, get university scholarships, get places on teams, be proud of records that they set, whatever it is. Females are worthy of equal opportunity. We are not second-class citizens, and I'm not prepared to sit back and pretend that we are. So,
amen. Oh my gosh, it's so true. There is no compromise for women. There is nothing that we should have to give up to ensure that trans athletes can compete. But that being said, trans athletes shouldn't be banned from sports. Of course not. And that's something that we see in the States a lot, especially in regards to state legislature being pushed. The opposition, they always say this is an anti-trans bill that bans trans athletes from competing. And that's simply not true. I love how you mentioned it equips people with the right information, with effective messaging, how to communicate about it, what to do. Really powerful. You mentioned in your book, you had a quote, I think it's from Cynthia Cynthia Millen, and it says bodies compete against bodies, gender identities don't swim, which is that's the basis of the argument.
How do we marshal feelings? It's ridiculous. You know, if we turn around and say that we're going to accept a feeling that says someone can feel like a male or a female depending on their feeling, not the reality of their body, where does that stop? You know, what's the next feeling that's going to trump a reality? And we're not doing our kids any favors by not dealing with the truth. You know, it's by telling young children that they're going to be able to change sex when they're not. They're going to have to take medication for the rest of their life. They're going to have to do things to their bodies which will probably shorten their lives.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Glad you're with us. Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network. Senator Tommy Tuberville comes up, joins us in about 40 minutes, plus an hour from now. Clay Travis in studio. Right now, John McLean joins us as NFL training camps are open across the league. John has covered the league for nearly 5 decades and has joined us.
Seen it all.
For, 2 decades now, it feels like. John, good to see you.
Clay Travis, I think I've heard of him.
Yeah, he's around.
First-time guest.
Blessing us with his presence in studio today, too.
It's maybe like a fifth-time guest in person. He's normally on by phone, so having him in studio,
tell him I said hello.
It's like getting the papal blessing.
We definitely will. We definitely will. John, Saquon Barkley gets $2 million up front. He has another roughly $1 million in incentives that he can earn, but we don't see normally a franchise tag or a tender reworked like this. We knew Barkley was going to sign at some point. Josh Jacobs, I know you've said will too. But why do you feel like the Giants had the incentive to get this done now and the way they did it?
Because he probably told him he would report now. I go back to 1977, my first training camp. The Oilers' starting running back was Ronnie Coleman. That was the year before Earl Campbell was drafted first overall. And I'll never forget interviewing Coleman. And back then, remember, they played 6 exhibition games and training camp was over 2 months. And I remember Ronnie Coleman said no position needed camp more than running backs because he said, we need our legs. We need to get our legs. And the only way to do that is to be in here running and getting hit. And so I'm sure they thought, if Barkley waited till the week regular season began, when the big paychecks start, he's going to be way behind. You know, they're trying to keep up in the NFC East, trying to keep up with the Cowboys and the Eagles. And I think they thought it was very important that he came in. He got an extra $900,000 in incentives. And so I think it's good for them, and it's as good as he's going to get.
Yeah, and the players have all but acknowledged that based on whatever Zoom call they randomly put together at the 11th hour through Austin Eckler. I understand where they're coming from, John, but here's the bigger and broader point. The players at the end of the day don't band together very often, and it would start with the quarterbacks doing that. Lamar Jackson tried to get that buzz going. We haven't heard anything from Burrow or Herbert. They're being very team-friendly to this point. Jalen Hurts and others, the star power of the quarterbacks, if they're not going to demand the Deshaun Watson treatment in Cleveland, I mean, the running backs doing this on Zoom, clearly they can't point to agents. They have to point to the PA, don't they?
They negotiated the collective bargaining agreement that allowed the owners to do it this way. You can't blame the owners. They've got colleges putting out more backs who are good receivers than they ever have because they throw the ball so much. They've also, analytics will tell them that running backs are not as important. The last 5 Super Bowl winners did not have a 1,000-yard rusher. And that tells you all you need to know. And it's just the plight that they have right now. I remember a time, and Mattress Mac and I do a video every week. We're the same age. We were talking about this week. about when we grew up, running backs were more important than quarterbacks because teams didn't throw the ball as much as they do. They just ran some more. And those guys were the stars. The Hall of Fame is loaded with great running backs.
Well, and John, and things can be cyclical in the league, and maybe it cycles back around for running backs to be more important at some point, and they start getting the money they feel like they deserve. My counter to these great running backs, and I think probably the league's counter, is name the last Super Bowl champion that was led by a running back. I mean, the closest to come to it were the Titans with Derrick Henry making an AFC championship game, I would say. I mean, Derrick Henry's probably got as much of an argument as anyone, but he got the contract he wanted from the Titans, right? It's hard to point to that. And I know it's not Saquon Barkley's fault, but look at Saquon Barkley's record with the Giants since he's been there. It's not good. And I'm sure ownership's probably pointing to that with some of these players as well.
They do know that, Chad, like, and it's not going to change. And they got another, I think, 6 years left on this collective bargaining agreement. So they can have all the Zoom calls they want to have, and it's not going to change. Say a star quarterback went down. Say the Titans with 5 games left lost Tannehill and just decided to run Derrick Henry till his tongue was dragging the ground. And he rushed for 2,000 yards, helped him get home field advantage again. And his contract happened to be up, and he's like 24 years old. Then maybe, but that quarterback, if he's younger, is going to come back healthy the next year, and everything's going to be the way it was before. So it's not going to change anytime soon. The backs, if they don't price themselves out, because every team wants to have 2 right now, if you don't price yourself out, you might be able to play like 10 or 12 years, or Frank Gore's 16, just making the minimum. And I know that's a big blow to the ego, but if you stick around long enough, you can make a lot of money.
Jimmy Graham coming out of retirement. Last time he played was 2021, a very uneventful season with the Chicago Bears. Signs with the Saints, John. What are the odds that he makes this roster this season?
I'm not sure what their tight end situation is. I haven't looked, but he ought to be in great shape. And he was a good player, not a great player when he played and he was healthy. I can't imagine he's going to move the needle for them.
Their depth chart right now, John, they need to move the needle at the position because they have Taysom Hill, of course, the do-it-all tight end quarterback, anything that's needed. And then Juwan Johnson is their right now listed as their starter. It will soon be Jimmy Graham back at it in New Orleans.
I heard they called Mike Ditka.
They did. Well, just looking at what Derek Carr has, I mean, Chris Olave, Michael Thomas. I mean, they do have weapons offensively that Carr can jump into and immediately start hitting the ground running with.
You can't count on Michael Thomas. It's been so long since he's done anything. I can't even remember. He's been hurt so much. So really, it's Chris Olave. And if they thought they had that big need at tight end, they could have traded for Darren Waller.
Yeah,
I think he cost a 3. They could have drafted in the tight end. So they're not putting a lot of emphasis on it. Bringing Jimmy Graham out of the mothballs is something. Maybe it'll work out, but boy, God's been out that long. You wonder how long till he gets hurt again and how much hunger he actually has.
John, Brock Purdy has been cleared to join the 49ers in all activities, no restrictions as training camp begins. He is not on the physically unable to perform list, which is what was, I think, the expectation on the timetable. He's ahead of schedule in that regard. And now, I mean, they go into it with Lance and Purdy where they left off prior to injury last year.
And Sam Darnold, who they signed as a free agent. And Brock Purdy, that guy's under a lot of pressure. When he was elevated, he played on an offense with more playmakers across the board than any team in football. Wide receivers, running back, tight end, running back who can catch. And he was in the perfect storm. And they didn't ask him to do things he couldn't do. It was great play calling by Kyle Shanahan and great play calling by great coaching by Bobby Slowick, the passing game coordinator. So he comes back And there was a reason that Shanahan traded so dearly to trade up to get Trey Lance. And so Lance if you put Lance up next to Purdy and had him throw, then Purdy's not going to stack up against Trey Lance. But it's much more to it, of course, than just throwing the football. And Brock Purdy's got all those intangibles, plus he's mobile, plus he knows that offense. He's very smart. And I can't wait to see how that plays out. And whether they make Trey Lance the emergency quarterback or Sam Darnold.
John, also in San Fran, Nick Bosa is about to get paid. He's not going to practice until they have this extension worked out. Jeffrey Simmons just got, $25 million annually on average. The Aaron Donald is at the 30 mark. Is Bosa about to be the highest paid player ahead of Donald when this is done?
I don't think he'd be ahead of Donald. He hadn't done as much as Aaron Donald did when he got his big contract. And since Aaron Donald got his big contract, he hasn't been as dominant. Maybe it's because of injuries, I don't know, but he hasn't been. But Bosa's younger. He led the league in sacks last year, defensive player of the year for the first time. When they got Javon Hargrave to play tackle in free agency, they paid him a lot of money. So you knew Bosa wanted that new deal or he wasn't going to show up. And the 49ers generally don't have financial issues with their players, so I expect them to be able to get it done.
So, John, you know Deshaun Watson from a coverage standpoint. You've covered him as much as anyone else in football. At Brown's camp yesterday, he's saying that the media narrative surrounding everything going on off the field with him has overshadowed his rough upbringing and never having a father figure in his life. And that's something that he shared with his Browns teammates immediately when he got there, and that endeared himself to his teammates. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember a lot of negative Deshaun Watson coverage up until the sexual assault allegations. He was always seen and written about as a great guy and a great leader from Clemson to the Texans, everywhere. And can you vouch for that as someone who has covered him closely?
All those stories he talked about have been done here so many times when he came in. We know all about his family. Everything was covered because he was such a big deal. There was not one negative word written about him until March of 2021, when the first civil suit was filed against him that ended up in the 20s. Then it was all negative because he didn't play in 21, suspended for 11 games in 22. So they may believe that hogwash up there, but his story has not been told. I don't know. I haven't been following in Cleveland. Maybe it hadn't been told up there, but it certainly didn't overshadow anything here because everything was positive until it wasn't.
Watson has the fully guaranteed deal in Cleveland. Burrow and Herbert continue to be in the shadows of public comment, unlike what we saw from Kyler Murray a year ago from his agent. John, who goes first here, Burrow or Herbert? And ultimately, are they going to settle for a team-friendly contract?
Oh, there's not going to be team-friendly. I mean, my God, who settled for a team-friendly contract? Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, they got so many hundreds of millions guaranteed. A team-friendly contract, I don't think either one of them will get fully guaranteed either. I think the first fully guaranteed will be when Patrick Mahomes has his deal redone by the Chiefs, which will probably be next year if indeed Burrow and Herbert are done. And Burrow's a lot better than Herbert. Herbert's been good, but he hadn't helped the Chargers, especially in that playoff game last year that they were just folded at Jacksonville.
Yeah, their defense sucks. I mean, it's that the defense has really failed him in that regard because they've been putting up points. I'm intrigued by it because if the belief is we can dive into this as the negotiation details come out. If Mahomes is believed to get that type of contract, the quarterbacks should band together more than what they have. If they really want to, they always get there.
Happening.
They always get theirs.
Those guys, Jonathan, if you were getting 175 million, would you band together and say, let's strike?
Well, everyone laughed at Lamar Jackson, and now everyone's covering the Zoom call with running backs as if they're affecting change. I mean, it's laughable considering how everyone laughed at Lamar for wanting what Watson received. and he was on an island by himself, even with Hurts and Burrow and Herbert, trying to get theirs too. They were eligible, and they will get theirs, but not to that level. Mahomes, he's going to be number one again very soon once these contracts work out. John McLean's number one on our show. We always love having you on, John. And also, I'm making a note here. We must discuss how Houston fans are upset over the legacy uniforms of the Tennessee Titans and the Oilers throwbacks, which
you should go on.
They look great, by the way.
SportsRadio610.com today.
Okay.
And hear me on with my guys in the loop, John Lopez and Landry Locker. There was a lot of screaming going on. I was called a liar. And it got heated.
Why?
And the reason is because I like the fact that they're going to wear the Columbia blue uniforms, as do the Oilers. When Amy Adams Strunk makes it official, I'll have a column on sportsradio610.com with guys like Bruce Matthews, Robert Brazil, Warren Moon, Dan Pastrini, talking about how much they love seeing those uniforms. And the fact people here just are gone ballistic, and that's fine. It's great for talk radio, great for columnists, podcasts. It is amazing what a hot topic it is down here, and they're ready to run me out of town.
John, always enjoy it. We'll catch up next week. Thank you so much. You can follow John on social at McLean_on_NFL. Coming up, leadership at Northwestern and the real problem at the top. That's next on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow.
Two biggest social media giants, Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, are set to battle it out, and I'm here on Broadway asking people who they put their money on. Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk, they're going to fight each other. Who do you think's going to win?
I think Mark's got him.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you think that?
Because he's a man.
Okay, and Elon Musk isn't?
Oh, well, of course, he's got money.
Okay.
He's got money. Money, well, money's money.
Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg in a fight?
I don't know. I'm going to go with Musk.
Why?
It just seems like he's a little bit younger, a little bit smarter.
You just got a good feeling about him?
I got a good feeling.
Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg?
Musk.
Why?
He trains. That guy's going to beat his
But Mark Zuckerberg is actually training jiu-jitsu for 9 months.
Not happening. Not Elon Musk all day. Elon Musk.
Why do you think?
He has no soul. I mean, I think he's definitely just going to no holds barred.
Elon Musk.
Why do you think that?
I don't know. I feel like he's stronger and smarter.
Oh, Elon Musk.
All the way? Why?
All the way. He's an animal. Think about it.
Mark Zuckerberg's been training for 9 months jiu-jitsu. You think Elon Musk can take him?
Yeah, I think he can take him.
Elon, that oh God, stop playing with Elon. Elon really do this out here, for real.
I hope Elon
Really? Why do you think so?
got better ideas.
Zuckerberg's like 5'7", 155. Musk is 6'1", 190. But Zuckerberg's been training jiu-jitsu for 9 months. Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg, who's going to win in a fight?
Oh, Elon Musk. No doubt.
Why do you think so?
He's the GOAT. I've been seeing all the Twitter handles and all the talk, and I'm on Elon Musk's side. I'm ready for them to get in the WWE ring and then come off the top rope. That's what I want to see. I want to see a people's elbow to Mark Zuckerberg.
If one was more likely to be a lizard or a robot, who would it be?
Elon.
Okay.
I think Mark Zuckerberg will win.
Why do you think that?
Because I think he already trains MMA. So he's got like the prior experience and stuff. I mean, they're both billionaires, so they have the opportunity to get the best training. But I think Mark Zuckerberg will pull away with the win.
Elon Musk.
Why do you think so?
Because he's bigger.
Bigger, okay, but Mark Zuckerberg's been training jiu-jitsu for 9 months. Do you think that matters?
No.
Because Elon Musk's he's gonna learn and train, right? So
Yeah. I think he'll handle Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg's a lizard, right? So
he's a lizard, but does that help him?
I don't think so. I think Elon will squash the lizard.
Cage fight. Elon Musk is mental, so Elon Musk.
All it is just he's mental. He's mentally crazy. So
He just wouldn't care, would he?
Okay.
He'd just absolutely go for it. I think Zuckerberg would be a bit more refrained.
Okay.
If that should ever happen, which I doubt, but you never know, it'd be entertaining.
Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg?
Elon Musk.
Why?
Because my dad is in love with Elon Musk.
Okay.
I think I'm going to have to go with Zuckerberg. I mean, Threads just came out, so.
Who do you think would win?
Zuck.
Why do you think so?
Because he's not a real human. He's a robot.
So he'll use that to his advantage.
Yeah, and all the Krav Maga stuff too. Yeah.
Who do you think would win in a fight, Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk?
Elon Musk.
Why do you think Elon Musk?
I think Elon's
He,
smarter.
like,
works with robots, so like maybe he built a robot to fight for him.
But what if Mark Zuckerberg is a robot?
Oh wow. Then I might have to change my answer.
Who do you think's gonna win?
Me.
Coming up in 20 minutes, Senator Tommy Tuberville will join us. New legislation, now a bill that is being pushed by Tuberville and also Senator Joe Manchin. Will detail that is now about to head to a vote, head to discussion, and the timetable behind it and why this legislation that's being proposed, bipartisan, works for the future of college athletics. Plus, Clay Travis coming up in the final hour of the show as well.
A story first reported by OutKick, and this will be Senator Tuberville's first interview since announcing this bill that's being proposed. So looking forward to talking to him about it and finding out if we're, any closer possibly to an end to all the headaches that coaches and administrators and commissioners of conferences keep talking about in regards to NIL.
Speaking of headaches, I get a headache anytime that President Michael Schill at Northwestern speaks on behalf of the university and their handling of this, because it falls on him and his decisions where he's saying that he should be praised for admitting an error in a 2-week suspension that turns into a firing of Pat Fitzgerald. But Chad, over a 3-day span, he admits to the student newspaper, the Daily Northwestern, going from reading a summary to then having the woman who was responsible for the independent investigation read out loud in detail all of the alleged hazing incidents and the findings behind the culture of the Northwestern football program, to where he admits in the paper, when you hear it line after line, bullet point after bullet point, it adds up as a coach that maybe he didn't know. We can't prove if he did or didn't, but he should have known something, and he's overseeing the program. Michael Schill's overseeing Northwestern, and I know you feel the same way when we see his name and a quote here, because of just the back and forth that and everything that was involved or maybe not involved from the university's perspective here.
Well, I like to think of myself as a simple man. I like to try to stay in my lane when I can. I don't like to make just preposterous statements about things that I can do that may not be true.
You speak what you believe.
But here's what I believe. I believe I could do a better job being the president of Northwestern than Michael Schill did in this instance. I could be a better leader than Michael Schill in this. Could I run the science department at Northwestern? Probably not. Probably couldn't do everything that he does. But when it comes to running the athletic director and the athletic department and handling an investigation into hazing allegations, I, and probably you watching or listening right now, could do a better job than President Michael Schill did in handling this at Northwestern, because he botched it from the beginning. So on Friday when they announced, this is just going back to that Friday, when they announced the 2-week suspension, at that point, he had read a raw summary of the investigation's findings and read it and heard from the investigators the summary of things. And he decided then, okay, can't prove that he knew, 2-week suspension, middle of the summer, without pay. Then a Daily Northwestern report happens. Then he decides maybe I should go back and read the full report. He does that. In reading the full report, he decides, maybe I should get some of the interview the transcripts, the footage of it, and go back and look at the interviews. And then he decides, I was wrong. I'm going to fire the AD. And now we're to trust this guy after going back and forth and doing that and could not be bothered on vacation to read the full report. I'd love to know where he was vacationing so I could make jokes about wherever it was.
But can issue a suspension on vacation.
Let's say it's Cape Cod. Let's say he goes to the Cape. All right, that sounds like a place President Michael Schill of Northwestern University would vacation. Cape Cod. He's in Cape Cod. He hears from the investigator, reads the raw summary. That's it. That probably took him 10 minutes to say 2-week suspension. And then he starts getting hit from a PR standpoint, and he has to go back and understand the full findings and read everything and all this. And now he's saying, I'm not even considered a change at AD. Consider a change at the top. Well, and if you're the board at Northwestern,
and he just got there too.
You need to consider a change at the top, the way this has been handled.
Yes.
And for all of this about AD Greg, and, he was there. A lot of the allegations happened before he got there. The dude hired Jim Foster, who he just had to fire.
Yep.
In the baseball program. Are we going to deny that?
And Northwestern,
that there was an environment of bullying, and it was so bad apparently with all the guys transferring that they had to hire a guy, let him coach for 1 year, and then fire him immediately from the AD. If I am the board, I am seriously thinking about completely cleaning house in regards to leadership at Northwestern. And that starts with Michael Schill, the guy who couldn't be bothered to end his vacation a little bit short. Also, by the way, when he fired Pat Fitzgerald, if you remember, the players and the team criticized him because he did it on a Zoom call from vacation and would not take questions. Then the next day he came back from vacation. It's a mess.
Well, maybe he was flying from Europe or so. Again, don't know.
I see him as a Cape Cod guy.
Cape Cod?
Yeah, that's my guess. I don't know.
Well, he was a Eugene, Oregon guy. He was the president at Oregon up until last year. And then he was named the Northwestern president and has now had to – he's known for having to deal with this and how he's dealt with that.
These glasses to me, though, scream Cape Cod.
I don't. So they're in a part of their now 2-part investigation that's ongoing now is about leadership from the athletic department and whether or not the second part is do those values and how things are handled match the academic standard at Northwestern. And when I read how this is handled, and it's from his own account and what he's admitting, I'm thinking, how can you lead that way and then expect everything to be in order in any department on your campus? It's the leadership aspect there speaks to both sides, not just the athletic department, but also the academic aspect of this from the president who's representing everyone. That's the uneasy feeling I would have from the PR perspective of the board of directors or anyone that's doing the hiring and firing and recommending what should be done to Schill after he's suspended Fitzgerald for 2 weeks without pay.
I just think anytime you get in the crosshairs publicly of something this bad, but this out there, heads
lawsuit
tend
after lawsuit
to roll,
now.
And it's not just now multiple lawsuits.
Volleyball player, and
you've got
it's
plaintiff
everywhere.
attorneys saying it's the Me Too of college sports. That typically doesn't end with only the head football coach losing his job.
Yeah, and you have the student journalists there that are doing the investigating.
So stay tuned. I think more heads will roll before
it's not the close of Northwestern's
No.
problems by any means. Coming up in just over 10 minutes, Senator Tommy Tuberville on new legislation proposed to regulate name, image, likeness across college athletics. First, though, the strangest headlines that Davey Hudson could find. It's time for Let's Get Weird.
Alarm system has been deactivated. Out.
Roger that.
Dude, you don't have to do the sound. It already does that. Out.
Copy that. I'm not gonna make the sound after I say stuff from now on. J.D. McNugent, over and out. That was the last one.
I'm convinced Davey only watches Steve Zahn films. That based on the openings.
Saving Silverman was good.
Saving Silverman's awesome. But
how can we play clips of that? We can't play a highlight of sports.
That is a great question.
I'll just speak that into existence.
We'll make it happen.
Yeah, Davey, go ahead. That's my weird news of the day.
We'll talk later. Thanks for letting me be the lead-in to Senator Tuberville, by the way. I'm sure he's also thrilled to have that be the case.
Hello, Coach.
He actually, Senator Tuberville requested this. He wanted us to go as low as possible to rise up to the occasion once he came on the show.
Well, it's funny because my first story actually does come from the state of Alabama. First person that actually kind of brought our attention to this was Jonathan Isaac last week.
Okay.
But we have a little bit more understanding of what actually happened. If you've heard of the name Carly Russell, that is a woman from Birmingham. Originally, things were going as though she was driving on the highway, going home, and she gets on her phone, says there's a baby on the middle of the road, and as she does this, she just starts screaming, and it appears as though she has been abducted. Well, it turns out she faked the entire thing. And there's been a lot of, obviously, bad publicity coming her way because of the amount of attention that was put forth as far as the police effort, the media effort, not to mention all the funds that were raised for Alabama Crime Stoppers. And where it gets weird, where I'm kind of like tying this in, if you saw that movie Saving Silverman, obviously they were going for a kidnapping and getting their friend Darren's wife, or soon-to-be wife. And
played by the great Amanda Peet.
Yes.
Big fan of Amanda Peet.
And so Steve Zahn and Jack Black obviously played some fools that were going about their way. And it seems as though the way Carly Lee orchestrated this was very dumb. You look at it, she had Googled the movie Taken beforehand. She'd also Googled, do you have to pay back for Amber Alerts? Which,
wow.
Yeah, so she really didn't put herself in glory there. Other things started to unravel because what happened was she showed up 2 days later to her parents' doorsteps. They took her to the hospital. She's doing all that. At first, she offers to cooperate with the police, but once things start going south, she's like, I don't really want to answer any more questions. People start to put a couple of things together. She was upset because it looked as though she was going through a breakup. Her boyfriend had removed all photos from her from his Facebook, which I don't know who still posts photos to Facebook in the first place.
This was a way to get back at an ex-boyfriend?
To make him
I'm
care
trying to
about
think of
her?
the motive of this. I understand how someone could do this today and fake their own abduction, but this is the thought that she did this to get back at the boyfriend?
They're still
to
piecing
make
that
him
together.
want her more, be sad.
There were several things. She just seemed to be seeking attention. She had also been recently fired from one of her jobs. She's currently, I don't know if she's still doing it, but she was a nursing student in the Birmingham area. So a lot will still come from this, but it was one of the things too. It reminded me, I played the clip from Saving Silverman. It also made me think back because the police asked her to describe the suspect. And she just goes, a white man with orange hair. And it made me think back to the movie A Guy Thing with Jason Lee, where he ends up getting into his own ordeal. And so he just makes he describes this guy that you see on your screen.
Ed Sheeran.
Yeah. And it's just, when he's describing this person, it's like, there's no way this person
Ed Sheeran
exists.
meets Post Malone.
But, just going with... orange hair is just a weird thing. I mean, maybe
I want to get into the psychology of this woman. This is where I would be fascinated. There's going to be some sort of docuseries on this. There'll be a true crime special on
There are
her.
no criminal charges for this.
But
not yet.
I need to know what goes into, what happened that you decided I need such a desperate cry for help or attention that I'm going to fake my own abduction by claiming there's a baby in the middle of the road and I'm saving the child. And then get abducted by doing that. Also in Saving Silverman.
But planned out, though.
Was there not a scene where she ate a beef and cheddar in a sexy way? An Arby's sandwich? Is that the same movie? Remember that? Amanda Peet is trying to seduce Steve Zahn? I think
that would
it
be
is.
the movie.
And the Arby's sauce is dripping on her chest as she's eating the sandwich.
Was it Arby's or Subway? Because he talked about he went to SU.
Oh, I'm pretty sure it's Arby's.
Okay, it might be.
I need to look
back.
it up to be sure, but I'm trying to make sure that I'm not mixing up my Amanda Peet movies from the early aughts. But I'm pretty sure that's the movie where she seduces someone by eating a beef and cheddar from Arby's.
Carly Russell also Googled one-way trips from Birmingham to Nashville. So tying that one home a little bit.
Maybe she just really wanted to go to Nashville. That's where everyone else wants to go.
I commend anyone who would donate to Crime Stoppers. I'm not pointing this out to not do that.
Yeah, you got the numbers here?
$63,378 were donated during the search for Russell. And right now, there's no basis to refund any contributions to Crime Stoppers because I guess you can't necessarily say you're donating for that. Again, That's awful. And that's why charges need to be headed her way instead of just looking at her mental state over a breakup.
No, she needs to. If any resources are used, and they were, she absolutely should go to jail for pulling this. And there needs to be made an example of this.
There will be.
Who was the Jussie Smollett?
Yeah.
Right. That you make an example of that. By the way, it was Amanda Peet who was being fed Arby's sauce by Steve Zahn in Saving Silverman. Glad I got that scene.
Oh yeah,
right.
they get together at the end.
As people
Spoiler
desperately
alert.
Google that scene.
This will now be a mental photo in my brain all day.
They did return funds. I think like the Birmingham Board of Realtors donated $25,000. They did process that one back to them.
Man, that's awful. Yeah, you're right. 25.
We need to spend more
time. There was
on
also
this,
20,000 by an anonymous donor.
Whew.
So
let's hope that gets returned.
Yeah. Hopefully she doesn't return to the ex-boyfriend. Should not return. Flee.
No.
Tommy Tuberville joins us next, the senator on the new NIL bill.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I just think the way Anthony Bass handled this was so sloppy.
Oh, I think it's perfect.
And what he reposted
he
and then how he did it.
He bent the knee and bowed. He was going to catch the ceremonial first pitch.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
When you're behind closed doors, when you're talking to plant managers, when you're having meetings, when you're with the team, was there an acknowledgement of any of this, an acknowledgement of the situation, the boycott, and then the doubling down about moving away from the fratty image?
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people. I'm pissed off about this. I never did it before in my life, but Trump is being cheated. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Old taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that, the final hour is here for Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow on this Tuesday edition. Glad you're with us across the OutKick network as we broadcast live from 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Maybe you're listening to this great radio partner or watching live on our OutKick channel on YouTube. We hope you'll subscribe while you're there. You can join Chad in the chat. Plus, pound the like button. You can hit the alarm, and you'll know anytime that we go live or any of the great shows here on the network are live or on demand each and every day. OutKick.com, also the place where you can get the very latest news and sports and pop culture and the latest on the new bill that Senator Tommy Tuberville and Joe Manchin have pushed to effectively reach some change and regulate the future of name, image, likeness. And legislation that they've been working on and have hosted coaches and administrators. Certainly the NCAA has been heavily involved. I'm curious where we are on how soon this timetable now works itself out, Chad, as we'll soon be joined by Senator Tuberville in a moment.
Yeah, and you're not going to get anything that's going to get 100% approval with anything this day and age, right? I'm curious how, and I've kind of been reading some of the media response to this.
Yep.
How much of it's going to be viewed as overly pro-university coach or versus one that's overly pro-athlete, right, and college athlete and what they can make financially. I think the goal is to get something that's fair, that creates a situation where the student athletes are not employees but can still make the money that they want to make while in college, while getting an education, while getting a degree, and create a fair environment, as fair as possible, for Power 5 schools, right? Because we all know, Hutton, this is headed in a direction where it's going to be the Power 5 financially that matter and that lead the way.
Well, so many of the responses to just where we are in the NIL space, in the transfer portal space, have been about there needs to be guardrails, guidelines, regulations. Who's enforcing those regulations? Who enters the portal and when? How do you profit off of name, image, likeness, but also enforce the fact that you're not allowing pay for play? All of that is something that the NCAA took a big step back from in 2021, and it's where conferences, Chad mentioned the Power 5, have stepped forward asking for federal help in this, and the former college coach, Tommy Tuberville, is now a United States Senator and has found bipartisan help in this with Senator Joe Manchin. And today, they are pushing tangible change with name, image, likeness through legislation and a new bill to regulate name, image, likeness rights. And we'll discuss that in just a moment with Senator Tuberville if we get the thumbs up. Coach joins us now. Great to be visiting with you yet again, and congrats on getting this bill pushed out to now we actually get to read through it and see where we're headed in possible change for the NCAA and how we're looking at name, image, likeness.
Well, we're not trying to invent the wheel here. All we're trying to do is, if you read the bill, it's called the PASS Act, and we've done our due diligence. My goodness, it's taken a year to get this done, and we've gotten a lot of help from coaches, administrators, commissioners, NCAA, collectives, parents, and it's the best we could come up with. We might end up making a few more changes, but right now we feel like we've got 4 or 5 basic rules that we want to send to the floor to see if we can make it a law where every state has to go by the same basic rules. And of course, you're going to have a lot of Democrats up here that want to unionize every player and let them be individual contractors. And of course, if they do that, I mean, we're going to lose college sports as we know it anyway. But we're trying to put some sense of reality and get the money. You know, again, I'm all for players making money. The Supreme Court said they can make money off their name, image, and likeness. I think it's great. That's fine. But that ruling wasn't put in so players could bid themselves and be recruited with money. It was just it's getting totally out of control.
Take us through, Senator, the highlights of this, if you will. Senator Tommy Tuberville with us. Why does this bipartisan NIL bill why does it work for the future of college athletics, and specifically at the very top where we're discussing all the money and the free-for-all that we've seen?
Well, again, these are basic rules. The NCAA is going to have to come in and add to this or take away. But the main thing is we want all 50 states going by the same rules. Now, you got states like California that they're a bunch of rogues anyway, and they just want to do what they want to do, and that's fine. If they don't want to go by this, hey, start your own league. But what we want to do is make sure that we get back to education, and it's about the student athlete. It's not about money. Now, again, I'm all for athletes making money, but if we don't watch what we're doing, we're going to end up ruining and taking out in higher education, Olympic sports and women's sports, because they have to have funding. And if you start putting money in all the football players and basketball players, and you don't pay attention to the other sports, they're going to be non-funded, and you got to have money to run these sports. So that's one of the main ideas that we got from the administrators, a lot of coaches, that the money has to be moved around. But again, it's that we didn't invent the wheel. This is not perfect. We're just trying to get some parameters where we can get medical attention after graduation, where athletes can get some kind of medical attention paid for, whether it's cognitive or orthopedic care after they've graduated. And there's small things like that we want to make sure a lot of the money is going to go in that direction, because a lot of these young men and women have problems after they leave college, and we'll make sure that that's taken care of. The transfer portal, I think there's some good things to it, but we want to go back to the old rule. If you read it, if you transfer, except for a few exceptions, if you want to transfer, I'm fine with that. But you've got to have some kind of penalty to it, because you've made a contract with a university that you're coming there to play for that school. Now, if you transfer, you have to sit out a year. Now, there's going to be some exceptions if coaches leave, health reasons. You always have to have some exceptions. But this transfer portal, where they just get up and move and take more money going to another school, that's not what education's about. And again, these things are coming from the coaches and administrators and players and families. The commissioner, this is coming from these people. This is not coming from me, ex-coach Tommy Tuberville. This is coming from the people that are going through these things right now, understanding that we have got to do something, and these are the best things that we can do to make this work.
Well, why was the transfer portal piece of this that's included in that you just talked about, Senator? Why was that important in this bill to curb the ability for players to transfer without penalty?
Well, because first of all, what are you teaching in athletics? And again, this is not coming from me. This is coming from some players, some coaches, parents. They want some stability. They want an opportunity for schools to be able to build teams, whether it's a hockey team, whether it's a basketball team, whether it's a volleyball team. And if you come in and you have mass transfers every year, you're not going to have the ability to do that. Also, if you come in and transfer, if you go back and look at the stats, if a young man or woman transfers at a university, the opportunity for them to end up and finish with a degree is minimal. Because when you transfer, you lose almost every hour that you've earned at that other school. And so you're having to add on a year or two of staying at that university to get that degree. We wanted to stay as close to the education part as we possibly could. Now, again, if you want to transfer because a coach left or some other reason that was necessary, there's going to be exceptions. But just to get up and say, listen, I can go to this other school and I can make $50,000 more, that's fine. If that school wants to pay you that, that's good. But you're going to have to sit out a year. I think there has to be some repercussions. We cannot be teaching these young men and women to quit because of money. The whole reason that they're going to a higher education is for a degree. If you want to go make money, then probably the pro route is the best for you.
Senator Tommy Tuberville with us on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick network. Would this bill ensure that athletes are not deemed employees? That has certainly been discussed throughout this entire process, Coach? And will this bill also prevent revenue sharing and the possibility of unionization, which has also been a hot topic?
Yeah, we don't need unionization in college athletics. We don't need it. We don't need the individual contractors. We need people to come to school to go for an education. If they can make money off their name and image, I'm all for that. And I think it's great. I think there's a possibility for some revenue sharing in this. I'm for every player making money. I'm from every player that's at some of these big schools that are making the school $40-50 million in television money. I think there should be a certain percentage of that. They need to sit down and do that, but that doesn't need to come as a federal law. Federal law, we need to stand up and say, okay, all schools are going to do the same thing about 4 or 5 different things. I think the NCAA and the university should step in and say, okay, we're going to give 20% or 10% or 30% to the athletes, but not just the quarterback and the running back and the wide receiver, everybody, first, second, third team that's on the team that's there to play for that university. Also the same thing for a volleyball player or a women's softball player. They should get some of the revenue, but that needs to be run through the educational system, the university. The more these universities take care of the athletes, at the end of the day, they're going to have a lot better opportunity to recruit young men and women from high schools to come to their university.
You've spent a lot of time on this, as we have certainly detailed over the course of the last year or so. The NCAA certainly took a step back from this. Charlie Baker's now the president. In the rules, NCAA rules should be able to enforce this. They didn't want to at the time. Will they be able to enforce federal law? And is the NCAA ready to actually regulate what you're putting forward if this bill passes?
Well, that's a good point. First of all, we got a long way to go on this. It's got to go through the Senate. It's got to pass with 60 votes. Then it's got to go through the House. It's got to pass by a majority. Then it has to go to the White House and be signed by the president. That's how laws are made and put together. It's going to be a chore to get that done because we have a lot of Democrats that want to unionize these kids. They want to take advantage of them. They want to use them as pawns. Hopefully we can stay away from that. Charlie Baker and I've had a good conversations with him. I think he's going to be good for the NCAA. I think he's got fresh ideas. If this does go through, it will give them an opportunity, to build upon that. But you got to remember, this is not a rule. If we pass this through the House, Senate, and the White House, it's not a rule. It is a federal law, and they will all go by this. Every state, and that's what we're trying to create here. You've got some rogue states that wants to do their own thing. And if we get into that, you're not going to have fair competition across this country. And how are you going to have a national champion if you've got some people, having, say, 50 baseball scholarships and some having 10? You can't do that. I mean, and that's I'm just throwing that out there. That's not in this bill. I just want to let people know we're trying to make fairness out of this. And it's hard to do that when you got so many parameters. Take it from somebody that did it for 35, 40 years. I know how hard this is. And so we wanted to stay out of the weeds on this and just give basic things to where the NCAA can build off this, and Charlie Baker and all of his group, it can work with the coaches, administrators, and the commissioners to make this work. This is going to be hard to get done. This is just the start of the fight. I mean, the fight is just now starting. So we'll see how far along we get with this.
How much consideration was given to student athletes in this? And in trying to create a system that's fair, it's impossible to go 100% athlete side, 100% administration side. But when considering this bill, how much consideration was given to the student athlete?
Well, the first thing we looked at, Joe Manchin and I and our staffs, we looked at education and student athlete first. I could care less about the coaches or the universities or the athletic departments or the NCAA. This is about our young people. The number one commodity in our country is not gold and silver or gas and oil. It's our young people. And if we don't understand that, we're not going to make it as a country. That's how this country has been able to make it 247 years, is because we educated our young people on moral values, hard work and effort, and learning to work with other people. That's what sports gives you. That's what our military gives us. And that's the only two institutions left. If we tear these two down, our country won't be the same in the future. So we started with the student athletes and the education part. And again, we put everybody else aside and tried to think about them first in every decision that we made.
Senator Tommy Tuberville has been our guest, and the new NIL legislation that he and Senator Joe Manchin have drafted in a bipartisan bill that's now headed through this process. Coach, thank you so much for yet again joining us and trying to get through the weeds of this. And again, I know this has been a long process. Hopefully we can continue to dissect it with you moving forward.
Well, y'all know how hard this is, so it's going to be very, very difficult. It's like putting a round peg in a square hole. It's going to be tough, but we're trying, and we're going to give it all we've got, and we're going to have a lot of help from a lot of people, and people are going to have to give and take to make this work. But hey, thanks for having me on, and hopefully we can talk again soon.
Yeah, appreciate it. We'll catch up soon.
Thank you.
Senator Tommy Tuberville, and we'll be combing through the details of this proposed legislation, which is going to be tough to enforce because the NCAA could not enforce their own rules at the time based on what the Supreme Court ruled in the Alston case, but also just gave the opinion, hey, if this were to happen, you'd probably lose this case too. And then Emmert took a step back. Now, who takes a step forward? Will this bill?
Let's react a little bit to this when we come back, because they're doing some really good work for the NCAA right now. I'll discuss.
Yeah, they're keeping them afloat.
Yeah.
Clay Travis also later in today's show. Stay tuned.
Two biggest social media giants, Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, are set to battle it out, and I'm here on Broadway asking people who they put their money on. Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk, they're gonna fight each other. Who do you think's gonna win?
I think Mark's got him.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you think that?
Because he's a man.
Okay, and Elon Musk isn't.
Oh, well, of course, he's got money.
Okay.
He's got money. Money, well, you know, money's money.
Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg in a fight?
I don't know. I'm going to go with Musk.
Why?
It just seems like he's a little bit younger, a little bit smarter.
You just got a good feeling about him?
I got a good feeling.
Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg?
Musk.
Why?
He trains. That guy's going to beat his
But Mark Zuckerberg is actually training jiu-jitsu for 9 months.
Not happening. Elon Musk all day.
Elon Musk.
Why do you think?
He has no soul. I mean, I think he's definitely just going to no holds barred.
Elon Musk.
Why do you think that?
I don't know. I feel like he's stronger and smarter.
Oh, Elon Musk.
All the way? Why?
All the way. He's an animal. Think about it.
Mark Zuckerberg's been training for 9 months jiu-jitsu. You think Elon Musk can take him?
Yeah, I think he can take him.
Elon, that oh God, stop playing with Elon. Elon really do this out here, for real.
I hope Elon
Really? Why do you think so?
got better ideas.
Zuckerberg's like 5'7", 155. Musk is 6'1", 190. But Zuckerberg's been training jiu-jitsu for 9 months. Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg, who's going to win in a fight?
Oh, Elon Musk. No doubt.
Why do you think so?
He's the GOAT. I've been seeing all the Twitter handles and all the talk, and I'm on Elon Musk's side. I'm ready for them to get in the WWE ring and then come off the top rope. That's what I want to see. I want to see a people's elbow to Mark Zuckerberg.
If one was more likely to be a lizard or a robot, who would it be?
Elon. Elon.
Okay.
I think Mark Zuckerberg will win.
Why do you think that?
Because I think he already trains MMA. So he's got like the prior experience and stuff. I mean, they're both billionaires, so they have the opportunity to get the best training. But I think Mark Zuckerberg will pull away with the win.
Elon Musk.
Why do you think so?
Because he's bigger.
Bigger, okay, but Mark Zuckerberg's been training jiu-jitsu for 9 months. Do you think that matters?
No.
Because Elon Musk's he's gonna learn and train, right? So
Yeah. I think he'll handle Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg's a lizard, right? So
he's a lizard, but does that help him?
I don't think so. I think Elon will squash the lizard.
Cage fight. Elon Musk is mental, so Elon Musk.
All it is just he's mental. He's mentally crazy. So
He just wouldn't care, would he?
Okay.
He'd just absolutely go for it. I think Zuckerberg would be a bit more refrained.
Okay.
If that should ever happen, which I doubt, but you never know, it'd be entertaining.
Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg?
Elon Musk.
Why?
Because my dad is in love with Elon Musk.
Okay.
I think I'm going to have to go with Zuckerberg. I mean, Threads just came out, so.
Who do you think would win?
Zuck.
Why do you think so?
He's not a real human. He's a robot.
So he'll use that to his advantage.
Yeah, and all the Krav Maga stuff too. Yeah.
Who do you think would win in a fight, Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk?
Elon Musk.
Why do you think Elon Musk?
I think Elon's smarter. Works with robots, so like maybe he built a robot to fight for him.
But what if Mark Zuckerberg is a robot?
Oh wow. Then I might have to change my answer.
Who do you think is gonna win?
Me.
Hot Mike with Hunter Withrow rolls on across the OutKick Network. 6th and Peabody, our location in Music City, with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine.
Fun day, big day.
Yeah. Our thanks to Senator Tommy Tuberville for joining us to discuss the proposed bill that is now bipartisan
already
legislation and structure around what they're trying to regulate, which feels like just the old NCAA rules.
Yeah, we'll talk to our next guest a little bit about this, but already getting lit up in the YouTube chat. Why don't you guys hit him on this, this, and this? And I'm like, we have 4 questions to ask.
Yeah.
You know, with a politician,
we have a hard break.
Typically, you're going to get like 4 or 5 questions in, and we've got a hard break at the end of the segment. And, you know, us just talking over him, yelling at him about the things you want us to yell at him, that's really not the most productive way to conduct an interview with someone. So, my apologies, but not really, to anyone who had a problem with the interview because, quite frankly, we crushed it. So,
Clay Travis joins us in studio here at 6th and Peabody, our fearless leader.
Clay just crushed something, too.
The founder of OutKick.
I hope.
And he's crushed the wardrobe today for good reason. We haven't mentioned what you've been doing here, Clay. I don't know if you've told anyone else either what the interview you just taped here on property.
No, I haven't told anybody. I just finished literally a full hour with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis talking about kind of everything under the sun as a part of his presidential campaign. So he's in town in the state of Tennessee. I think news earlier today that they had an accident in part of the car group that he was driving in Chattanooga. He's, I think, basically been all over the state, and he's in Nashville now for a fundraiser this evening. And I just spent, like I said, an hour with him. And I think it's going to be pretty interesting for people to hear that conversation. We talked about everything from his love of baseball cards as a kid to would he take the VP slot if Donald Trump offered it to him. So I think it's going to be a pretty illuminating, interesting, enjoyable interview for people. And I always think, you're talking about your interview with Tuberville, and obviously I know Tommy Tuberville a little bit through not only sports but also him being a senator from Alabama now. But I always think it's interesting to do interviews, and you're saying people are complaining about the questions you didn't ask. I always ask questions that I would want to know the answer to if I were out in my car listening or if I were somewhere consuming this content. So that doesn't mean that anybody who conducts an interview is ever going to be flawless. I mean, I'll hold, my note. I talked to DeSantis for an hour. I don't know if anybody can zoom in, but this is literally my entire notepad. So everything that I asked was off of this notepad, and I'm old school in that every show that I do, I just sit with a yellow legal pad and I jot down notes to make sure that I want to hit certain topics. So everything that I wrote down on here, I asked, and then I left open time because I had the luxury of time to be able to ask additional questions that followed up on other answers. But I think one thing people don't understand if they don't ever conduct interviews is it's rare you have an unlimited amount of time. Most of the time you have like 7 or 8 minutes, and you've got to do your best in those 7 or 8 minutes to hit the questions that you want to ask while understanding that somebody might say something that you want to follow up on. So, look, interviewing like any other thing is an art form. You can go in the chat right now and see what people want to ask me, and I'll answer any question rapid fire.
Ask Clay anything.
In 30 seconds or less. I don't want like, hey, long form answers, but anything people want an answer to, I try to be as responsive as possible.
Well, and yeah, and you normally are for sure. Here's one of the examples, Clay, right, with a guy like Tommy Tuberville. The top complaint we'll get is, here is a guy who got up from dinner with a college recruit to leave one job and take another job and not come back to the dinner when he got a call for more money or a job that he wanted. How can he talk about commitment and everything else and not opening up the transfer portal, right? Well, when Tommy Tuberville is on with us and he says, people who are only in it for the money should go play pro sports. This is college sports and it's different. I already know his answer if I say that, and it'll be, well, that's why I went to college and became a college coach as my profession, where I could take jobs for more money or better opportunity or whatever it may be. But if I ask that question to Tommy Tuberville now hates me, and he's not going to answer Hutton's next question for bringing that up. So I have now killed a productive interview where we're getting good answers from him about this bill.
Well, he's answered that question like a lot over the years. So the fact that you want a question asked that somebody has already answered, potentially answered for years, is actually a flaw in your research. Because if you really care that much about the answer to that question, you can get your phone and there's something called Google, and you can type in and see exactly what Tommy Tuberville said 8 years ago in response to that question. Here's the other thing that I would say. I remember having this conversation with Colin Kaepernick. I don't check mentions typically during my radio program. I've got the biggest radio show in the country. Before that, I had a big national radio show. But I remember having this conversation with Colin Kaepernick, and he's like, I, for a while, early on in Twitter, would check messages, and I'm paraphrasing Colin, and he would say, like, somebody would say, I don't know why you're talking about LeBron James right now. I don't know why you're talking about Tom Brady right now. And he would say, well, because the ratings reflect that people really care about Tom Brady and LeBron James, and they don't care about, I don't know, the Minnesota Vikings offensive line. If, however, and I would say this to anybody, if you think I talk about topics that enough people don't care about, guess what? Start your own media company, right? If you think that you have an incredible grasp of topics that are being otherwise under-discussed or not discussed at all, do what I did. Start your own sports media company and get fabulously wealthy, or you could be a little bitch, sit anonymously on Twitter and complain about people who have the job that you wish you had. It's a pretty easy fix. Because guess what? When I started in 2004, do you know what my audience was? Zero people, right? I was a practicing attorney in the U.S. Virgin Islands. I had an audience literally of zero. And now we have a daily audience of millions. I bet on myself. I trusted my own instincts. And now we got a big company. So, I mean this honestly. If you think that you have a unique skill set that is otherwise being underutilized in a larger media ecosystem or anywhere, right? If you think you're underpaid as a mechanic, there's an analogy I like to tell my boys, all right? If you go to a concert, what do you pay for a bottle of water? $6? $7?
At least.
$6 or $7, right?
At least, yeah.
Okay. That same bottle of water, if you walk into a grocery store, you can buy, I don't know, a whole package of 12 for like $7, right? I'm guessing. I don't know. I haven't bought water.
$4 to $7.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
It's the same exact product. In one place, it's valued at $7. In another place, it's valued at 50 cents. If you believe that you are being undervalued where you are, then go to the place that you could get the $7 bottle of water. Same exact product. Maybe your talents are not being utilized in the way that would allow you to 14 times your earnings. Because you can change the price of a bottle of water, exact same product, Dasani, 50 cents at the grocery store, $7 at the concert. It's the same product. It's all about the location, giving it the value.
I could talk bottled water all day, but I do want to ask you about this bill that they've presented and just the future of college sports. And there was one line in this about this is a bill that can preserve college sports as we know it. Clay, my question to you is, is the illusion of college sports as a conduit to a college education and what we thought of college sports, maybe even when we were kids. Is that dead forever? Or is there any way to get that back without thinking about college sports as a profession, given the money involved?
I have zero concern about what anybody who plays college athletics drives as a vehicle or where they live. So I am a capitalist. So if you have a talent at 18 or 19 or 20 years old that is of value, I think that you should be able to unlock it. Now, having said that, I think there are a couple of things that are significant that need to be reconciled in college athletics. One is, if we're going to have 50 different state laws, you're going to create a competitive imbalance. Think about this for a minute. The NFL is the most successful pro sports league in American history. What do they sell? Competition. They sell the idea that on any given Sunday, anybody can win, and we all buy it enough that we're willing to watch. Interestingly, most business, the goal is to put your competitor out of business. The Cowboys can't put the Eagles out of business. That would actually make the Cowboys less valuable. What the NFL sells is competitive excellence and the idea that anybody could win on any given Sunday. So, first of all, college athletics is similar because what you're selling is competitive excellence. And so if you are creating, because of the rules, a situation by which competitive excellence doesn't exist, then I think that's a flaw. The other part of this is, we have no pure marketplaces in pro sports outside of Major League Baseball. That is, every other pro sport has a salary cap. And so on some level, I think what you're focusing on when you ask the question, like, what does this mean for college athletics? It is, if there's only 10 schools that can afford to be really good, then I think that's bad for college athletics, whether it's basketball, whether it's football. And I actually think this is going to be the case, NIL actually expands competitive balance so that, let's say you're at Ole Miss, you can be better than you would otherwise, and I think expanding to 12-team playoffs makes this more likely, then I think it can lead to a better flourishment of college athletics. And the way that I would look at it with Roe and Hutton is I would look at the ratings. And so far, the ratings are not reflecting that people are concerned about NIL to the extent that they're turning it off. On the contrary, we just saw the most watched women's college basketball game of all time. The NCAA tournament just set all-time highs for early rounds, and the ratings on college football are pretty fantastic. So I would suggest that the audience ultimately determines whether or not they like the product that's out there. And so far, they're saying, hey, we like this.
Yeah, and you mentioned competitive balance. I think the portal has been excellent for college basketball. The tournament this past year is a great indication of where that's headed. This would curve that a bit based on the language of this. And the problem I have with the concept of this, Clay, is that basically this feels like NCAA rules that they could not enforce 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And now, because all of a sudden, if this passes, and it's unlikely, but if it passes, snap of the fingers, the NCAA and Charlie Baker, they're going to enforce this all of a sudden. I don't buy it because they knew they couldn't do it then. And the state of Tennessee's threatening to sue them if they have a bowl ban for the university and penalties.
Well, I'll give you an example. You guys probably talked. I haven't had my phone on for the last couple of hours, so let me know if this is wrong. But when I checked, Jim Harbaugh was likely to get suspended for 4 games.
That's right. Negotiating.
That's correct.
That,
yeah.
Okay. Withrow, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe what Jim Harbaugh is being accused of is basically the exact same thing that Bruce Pearl did.
I brought this up in the first segment. Yep,
Okay.
Lying about something that was pretty arbitrary.
Okay. So Bruce Pearl got how many years?
5.
5 years of suspension.
Was it 3 or 5?
I thought it was 4.
3 years, Davey's saying.
Okay, 3 years.
I know it was an odd number. It was 3 or 5.
I think it was 3 years plus half of an SEC season because I think they suspended him for the last year that he coached at Tennessee. My point on that is we've gone from Bruce Pearl dealing with, let's say, 3 1/4 year suspension to now the NCAA is so weakened that when Jim Harbaugh lies to them, he gets 4 games. So I think the NCAA is basically an inept and worthless bureaucratic organization that I don't know provides any significant benefit to the larger college athletic structure. And what I keep waiting for is for all of these big, so-called big schools to just spin off and create their own organization. But right now, the challenge is you've got 50 different organizations all competing, and those are states, to try to create the best competitive advantage for the respective institutions in their state. And I can see how that can create a huge mess in terms of just trying to implement the most basic rules.
Are you sticking till the end of the show with us?
What time is it now?
35 after, 4:35 Central.
Yeah, I can stay. Do you want to do a rapid fire? People can fire.
We'll do a rapid fire coming up, but and we can dive back into anything on the chat. How much time did you spend on this? I like the jacket, by the way.
Yeah.
Did Laura pick this out?
No, Laura's taking.
When you found this was happening yesterday, you're like, what am I wearing?
No, Laura's taking the bar. The bar exam in the state of Tennessee right now. So I don't think she has any idea what I've done today. Or that I was even talking to DeSantis. I mean, this came together quickly.
Fast, nor would she care if she did.
I'm just saying you put it together well, Clay. That's all I'm saying.
Well, yeah.
Well done.
Thank you.
$1,000 boots and everything else.
These are crocodile skin. Not to brag. I don't know if people can see these.
Did you kill the crocodile?
I would.
We were like Crocodile Dundee.
This is from Australia.
You know they're legit because the price isn't on the heel like mine.
This is the most expensive article of clothing that I've ever purchased.
We'll break down Clay's belt when we come back. We'll go through the wardrobe.
Belt is not expensive, but these are prime.
Coming up more with Clay Travis, Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick network. Stay with us.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I just think the way Anthony Bass handled this was so sloppy.
Oh, I think it's perfect.
And what he reposted,
he
and then how he did it.
He bent the knee and bowed. He was going to catch the ceremonial first pitch.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
When you're behind closed doors, when you're talking to plant managers, when you're having meetings, when you're with the team, was there an acknowledgement of any of this, an acknowledgement of the situation, the boycott, and then the doubling down about moving away from the fratty image?
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people. I'm pissed off about this. I never did it before in my life, but Trump is being cheated. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. A bold taste of a Southern legend.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Hutton and Withrow with you. Hot Mike across the OutKick Network. Clay Travis in studio with us for the remainder of the show. Clay used to have the Twitter handle, Clay Travis BGID, beer getting it done. The hair is getting it done today. Withrow even pointed it out that you had moved the headset back a little bit.
Well, people are claiming, and I defended Clay on this because I know he doesn't. They're asking if Clay's coloring his hair. Now, thought his hair looked darker.
Yeah, I don't think he does.
No, I've never. I don't think I'm ever going to dye. I can't say never because I don't know what I'll feel like when I'm 54. Yeah, I'll definitely die.
DYE, not DIE. We all know Clay will die. He does not think he's immortal.
I have not yet.
I can see the headlines now.
I've never dyed the hair. So I don't plan on doing it. But like I said, when I'm 54, maybe I'll suddenly have a change. And I'll be like Al Michaels and have dark brown hair for the next 40 years. Who knows?
It is weird when the older guy goes like different color. It's not just jet black for like dark hair, but their hair color changes.
I think I'm incredible at noticing when people's hair color changes.
Nick Saban had this happen.
Oh, I mean,
where suddenly his hair color was different. It wasn't just like dark; it was a different color altogether.
Yeah, and I don't know who we're fooling. I mean, how much different do people think about Nick Saban? He's 74? If he had dark hair if he had white hair instead of dark hair.
I think it's more like if you're going to do that, if you're going to paint your hair, you have to do it at a certain stage to where it's gradual and it's not noticeable. And I think you keep doing it because if you stopped, it would be catastrophic. Because you're so gray.
Yeah.
At least that would be. I'm trying to think why you would keep doing it at 70.
Well, I'm not trying to pretend to be younger than I am now, but that's why I said, but maybe when I'm 54, like I'll be like, oh my God, I look, 68 or 75. People might think that I look 64 now. I don't know. I work a lot. I don't sleep much. But I'm 44. No, all natural.
But I'm thinking like,
what's an acceptable age to have white hair? That's what I keep asking myself because a lot of men in my family go gray pretty early.
Yeah.
So if
I haven't noticed that with you, though.
I've had a cousin who was like completely gray at 47. That seems pretty early to me to be totally white haired.
But then you have like kind of the Anderson Cooper look where you're young and the white hair actually is a good look because your face is still young enough. I actually think it looks weird. And I say this because it doesn't look weird to me because Al Michaels has always looked, I'm just not trying to pick on Al Michaels, but clearly he would have white hair. I also think it factors in if you have hair, right? Because the bald guy is a tough look, I think, in general. And I think there's probably some insecurity associated with being bald. And so that can factor in on hair. I don't know. I'm not that worried. I think also if you're single, like everybody knows like the guy who gets divorced and then like instead of he's got like a whole new wardrobe because he never bought clothes the whole time he was married. And then, you go from like, oh, that guy dresses like it's 2004 to that guy dresses like it's 2024, like overnight, or even 2027. Like you're like 3 years ahead
Futuristic
of what you're like 3 years.
You go from Jim Harbaugh to Sean McVay.
Yeah,
basically.
right. Like you're
a lot of
dressed.
affliction.
you're dressed like it's New York City and you live in like Birmingham, Alabama in 2027. You're like 4 years ahead of everybody else's curve. Like, so I think that factors in whether you're trying to pretend your age. But I just don't know, if people see Al Michaels, do they think he's way younger because he has dyed hair? I don't know. Nick Saban, same thing. I'm not in that category yet, but no, my hair is all natural.
I think the white hair just looks better. I think Al Michaels would look better with white hair. I like a graying look. I don't know that I want to go completely white at a young age, but graying hair to me is totally fine. That's why I never want to dye my hair.
Like if Joe Biden still had brown hair, it would look super ridiculous, right?
Yes.
Because he's clearly 82 or whatever the heck he is, 81. And who are you like fooling, right? I think that becomes the question. At what point do you go full gray?
But Travis, I'm worried about the beard going full gray before anything. I
don't think that's a bad look. Like my beard is grayer than my hair, and I don't know what the reason is for that. I presume because the beard gets trimmed faster, so the hair lasts. I don't know.
Are you and I graying at the same time frame here? Because I've signed your autograph several times, so. I just put a big C. I've told you the C in a line.
I just don't want to be held responsible for children that aren't mine. That's what I'm more concerned about than autographs.
I better shave the beard then.
Yeah, that's true. Alejandro says it's time to start the OutKick lifestyle column based on this conversation.
Yes.
We can offer a lot of advice.
I mean, I've been doing the anonymous mailbag for years. I think I'm not going to surprise anybody. I think I'm credible at giving advice on all subjects.
You're headed to see the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah.
How long has this been planned? And I mean, this is Father of the Year category here. If you're going to back-to-back series.
Yeah, I'm going to be in Atlanta from Friday to Wednesday, so I leave in 3 days. I try to get my boys down every year for a homestand. So with different, athletic events going on and school events, and the kids get older and they have more activities. So this was the only one that worked when there wasn't, baseball, football, whatever else is going on. So we're going to be there. For 6 games. I can't wait. This will be the first year we ever went to the Braves was that ridiculous COVID year. And the reason why we went in there was because you could stay at the hotel and actually watch the game take place inside of the stadium. And my then 8-year-old was such a monster Braves fan. He was like, Dad, this is what I want for my birthday. So I guess he was turning 9. And so we went down and watched games from the hotel there for people who are not familiar to be able to look into the Braves game. And my middle son has made the whole family Braves fans. So we're going to be down there staying at the hotel, going to games. I can't wait.
Clay, can you explain to us how you've become even more of a millionaire gambling on Women's World Cup action?
I lost last night. I only went 1-2. My theory is, I believe.
But I saw today you were like 12-2-1 or something overall.
Yeah, 13-3-2 betting Women's World Cup, and all I'm doing is betting based on which country has the best human rights for women. So I don't know a single player. I know the U.S. women. I don't know a single player anywhere. I stayed up last night till 11 o'clock. Watching Colombia versus South Korea women's soccer because I was on the South Koreans. And by the way, I just got to say, that South Korean women's coach has got to be fired immediately. I did not like the performance that I saw. Me and all the other South Korean women's soccer fans out there expected better. You're preparing for this for 4 years.
Clay Travis's house and Seoul were both despondent last night after that match.
When we share this clip, we are going to go viral in South Korea immediately because every South Korean soccer women's fan knows exactly what I'm talking about. This was not a well-prepared team. This was not a well-coached team. They did not have a strategy that could have led to victory. So I lost last night, the Colombia game. The Philippines took out New Zealand, and I'm just going to be honest. I expected better from the Kiwis. This is their home tournament. They got blanked 1-0. Congratulations to the Philippines. Imelda Marcos, if she's still alive, probably very happy. But I was not happy with that overall outcome.
Clay, have you ever considered rooting against the Americans because you disagree with Megan Rapinoe?
No, I wouldn't root against them over politics. I would root against them over gambling. So if I think there's a value that's like tonight, is it tomorrow? Tomorrow, the U.S. women play the Netherlands, and I was looking at that, and I was like, man, I think there might be value on the Netherlands women here because they allow.
But who has the better human rights record for women?
I mean, honestly, this is where I was assessing. They allow prostitution in the Netherlands, Is that good for women or bad for women's rights? I mean, that's a big debate.
What a huge question that we can't possibly answer on this show right now.
But so
very complex question.
I decide, but then it's legal in.
It's very sex positive. That's something I know a lot
It's
about.
legal in Nevada, so there are some places where you can sell sex. Is that pro women's human rights or not? I mean, it's really kind of a fascinating debate. And so I ended up coming down on the side of the U.S. women. But I do think this. I was in the crowd in the U.S. women win over Japan in 2015 in Vancouver, Canada. And that women's World Cup team, the entire United States, they were beloved. They were one of the most liked teams that I can remember in recent vintage. And I do feel like they have chopped off a lot of their fan base by, and honestly, I'm making fun of the human rights and the way that I'm gambling just by analyzing it. But imagine how much different the conversation around the U.S. women's team would be if instead of attacking America on the global stage, when they were, I believe, in France in 19, and now they're in Australia, and before that in Canada, they weren't political. If they had said, hey, and this is the truth, people say, how come the U.S. women are so much better than the U.S. men? Like, why do the U.S. women win World Cups and the men don't? And I say, well, because women around the world can't all drive cars. They can't wear shorts. Women's athletes in much of the rest of the world do not have an opportunity to make a living by pursuing top-level athletic endeavors. So if the Megan Rapinos of the world would come out and say, actually, look, America's imperfect. Everything in our country is not flawless. But if every other country around the world gave their women the same freedom that the women of the United States have, then the Women's World Cup would be far more competitive, and we would actually be far less likely to win. So the answer is the men, if you are a talented male athlete anywhere in the world, supremely talented, usually that talent gets developed, whether you live in North Korea or if you live in the United States. The same isn't true for women. If you were the most talented women's soccer player of all time and you're growing up in Afghanistan right now, you have almost no opportunity to get your talent out to the masses because you aren't able to wear shorts and play soccer. To me, that's such a compelling story to tell, and it actually would be so unifying because it speaks to American exceptionalism. And yet the U.S. women won't make that argument. Instead, they want to say Donald Trump is awful and he's Hitler or whatever. And Megan Rapinoe wants to argue that a dude who's pretending to be a chick should be able to be on the U.S. women's soccer team.
I just don't think they're all as crazy as Megan Rapinoe. I mean, I think we all agree she's nuts.
I think a lot
I don't think Julie Ertz, who had a kid and just came back after 2 years, who's married to Zach Ertz, I think it's counterintuitive for me to root against her because I dislike Megan Rapinoe.
I think that's a good argument. And by the way, I think
she's the most vocal. That's what people think about is her.
The country should be able to speak out, right? I believe you should be able to give any opinion that you want, but the opinion I just shared is actually the reason why the U.S. women are good relative to the rest of the world. It's because of exceptional human rights in the United States, and because this country is so wealthy, 6-year-old girls everywhere can go play soccer, and then they can grow up and be the next Megan Rapinoe or the next Julie Ertz or the next Alex Morgan or whoever the superstar is that you want to point to. And I think that's an incredible asset of America and something to be celebrated. And that's what I would like for them to be saying if they want to talk about political related issues. How about just support girls all over the world being able to wear shorts and play soccer? That seems like something that would be healthy.
Clay, before we wrap up here, give us an idea about what took place today with Ron DeSantis, your interview, and where we'll see that, how, all that.
I think we're going to pop out some of it late tonight. There's going to be a lot of news that comes out of it. I mean, we talked for a full hour.
What was your favorite part of the responses you got?
I mean, I think the most interesting part was just talking with Ron DeSantis about how much he liked baseball cards when he was a kid.
He's a Braves fan, isn't he?
No, that's a good question. I'm not sure who he roots for. We talked about the Bucks. He talked about growing up a huge Tampa Bay Bucks fan. But, he's exactly my age. So there weren't necessarily, I don't know when the Marlins got to Miami and Tampa got to Tampa. I think he's like me a little bit in that a lot of the pro sports franchises in Florida came after, he was kind of getting up. Like
he would have been like 14 when the Marlins got to town. 93.
So I'm not sure. That's a good question. I'm not sure who his baseball team is.
Yeah, I remember reading something. I don't know if it was Braves. It was out of Florida. And I was like, I'm
I mean, it wouldn't be a surprise. I mean, look, our generation grew up watching two teams every night, the Cubs and the Braves. So there are Cubs fans and Braves fans because of WTBS and WGN all over the country and, frankly, all over the world, just based on the fact that you could easily watch those teams play on those stations.
We're doing a straw poll, final 10 seconds. Whenever Chad has his annual physical, what's likely to have a very high level? Everyone's going to give their own issue that Chad's likely to find out.
Estrogen.
Oh.
That
explains the lack of gray.
Well, could be.
That's the trick. It's not paint.
And the lack of beard.
Clay.
I'm the only one on this set right now without a beard. That's why.
Thanks for coming in.
That's fun. Keep up the good work, boys.
Back at it tomorrow. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow right here on OutKick.